my reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fight. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding me tonight. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Where are they taking me? I'm swelling in me. Where are they taking me? Anxiety rising. Was it just in my head? Paralyzing panic. Was it just in my head? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head?
Bite the brains out. In the dark you hear a growl. Monsters in the night, unnatural appetite. A demon sent me here to take you to the afterlife. I feel something change inside of me. The inner human slowly dead in me. I feel it come alive. The darkness brings me light. There ain't no stopping it, and you will never hide from me. Pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night. Ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's
dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must stow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the ocean night. When you see the flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now our grave. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean wind blow. From long ago, the berserker traveled, crossing raging seas, snatching souls, devouring, conquering and beast. The seas could not take me, war could not break me, to feel so alive, overflowing elation, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war. The lands could not hold me, the ocean could not keep me, though she tried.
crime, murder at midnight. A deal I made, a life I had to take. Someone I love once held so tight. The screams will follow me, cries of my ancestors said, go away. My operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hive inspire me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. This form I desire, innocent blood I will devour. Ancestors gathering round the dwelling, the spirit inhabiting, evil enveloping, the dancing graves in the night, the spirit occupying and transforming, stolen heights, dark practices, my secret life, feathered outers, mysticism, intriguing, my operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hive inspire me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. Give me the ability to hide in plain sight, so no one can see me, not even in the light. I am the crawler, I'm a within, I'm nobody's friend. This initiation is all part of the dark creation. My desires performing incantations. I walk in disguise. If I catch you, it's your demise. Shamanism, my religion, summoning spirits, manifesting myself and changing my flesh. A nightmare to behold. I'ma make you part of the fold. The skin of a man, the soul of a predator. The change is complete. This thing I become, my flesh has succumbed. My operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hive inspire me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same.
Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable, folks. I just got in the studio, man. It's work. I have a lot to do. And I really apologize for being 30 whatever minutes late. Apologize to my guest. Very busy. I wasn't goofing around, I can tell you that. So, folks, I have a guest tonight, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't actually had the pleasure to speak to this guy. So he's going to come on, and all I know is what I've looked up and what I've read a little bit. And typically, I don't do that. I don't typically bring somebody on who I have not spoken to at length, or if I already know them, and beforehand, and I'm pretty aware, who they are, know a little bit about them and their work, then it's not a big deal. But so what we have here tonight is a guy that's going to come on. He's going to talk about some weird stuff, which is it's what we do. People are like, really? Shocker, because that's pretty much what we do. And yeah, and so Christopher Macklin is his name, and we're gonna get into it. I have some questions. I have some things I want to ask. So I'm gonna skip all the formalities because we're running behind here, and I'm gonna get him on. Let's bring him on. Christopher, how are you doing today?
Josh, I'm wonderful. How are you, bless your heart? Sounds like you're busy.
Very busy, dude. I was like, I actually got here to the studio, and then I had to like turn around and go grab something that I had totally forgotten. And it was something very important, and I was like, I didn't want to get embarrassed myself, but I was just flying by the seat of my pants because I have a ranch, and so I had a lot of work to do, and they're just trying to get back to do that, and then taking a shower and getting ready. It's just because even though people don't know whether you shower or not, like I feel it. I feel like people can look at me and go, "That guy didn't shower."
I'm the same, actually. But sometimes,
Really?
yeah. Well, I shower every day because my skin, is very sensitive, so I have to have a shower every day. But it's interesting nowadays. It becomes a bit of a chore because there's so much to do. I mean, we have 40 acres here, and a house built on it. But it's mainly trees, but I love it because it's got a lot of activity here, which is really good. Which we'll talk about later. Wow. Things flying by, and it's amazing. So,
well, I take cold showers, so that way it gets me prepped, gets me going, and I do a breathing thing, and it's like it's a must. I do it every day. At the minimum, it's this Wim Hof. I do at minimum the 11-minute program, which is like you only like, for me, when I do that, it's only about 5 or 6 minutes, of holding your breath altogether. But sometimes I'll do like the like 13 minutes. Like I'll do it, like it's, you don't do it all at once, obviously, but you break it up.
Yeah.
And then I jump in and get a cold shower because it raises your body temperature when you do it. So when you take the cold shower, it's not as like whatever, but it definitely helps your skin. If you have skin issues, cold showers are the way to go. I don't know if your body you'll be used to, but it will surely help you with a lot of problems if you have skin issues.
The main skin issues is because of emotion. I think doing healing. I mean, we work on about 3,000 people a week. We have general groups, specialized groups, one-to-one. So I work on a lot of people a week, and a lot of people are struggling, of course, right now. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, people, if they don't realize the world's nuts, the place is nuts. I love it, but it's nuts.
Yeah.
And people are struggling emotionally, with different things, and so there's a lot of work involved in it nowadays. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's do this. Introduce yourself. It's Christopher Macklin, obviously, but tell them what you do, and then let the people know like where you come from or whatever. I mean,
yeah, I'll do a quick introduction. Probably, maybe go back a bit. Born in Chester, England, just near Liverpool, between Liverpool and Manchester. I've been, what would you call it, targeted from an early age. A day old, I had 8 strokes, went into hospital, in there for a year, burnt my back, different things happen. They know who's here to do different things, and sometimes they do target people. Now it's up. last year was the last one, which was October. The Vatican sent us a low-frequency energy weapon and damaged my heart valve, and I had to have a heart valve replacement. So these things, different things are happening. But anyway, so fairly gifted at early age. At the age of 4, I remember specifically, I was in my bedroom. This when it all started, the activity. I saw a reptilian thing in the corner. I can see through the veil. And I said, Dad, there's a reptilian in the corner. And he comes running in. What? Where? It's there, No, it's just a bad dream. And I know you walked out and I thought, I could feel, when you see these entities, low vibrational entities, you can feel like a darkness in your chest.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I just said, get out of my room. It went, and I thought, oh, this is good. And it happened more and more, lots of activity, see things, see craft in the sky. Basically took a degree in masters and went into a corporate system doing flight control systems, boring as heck. People think, oh, that must be a great job. No, it's boring, it's software, and I used to look around and think, there's got to be something more than this. And 20 years ago, I had a reading, and this lady was just outside Liverpool. So I walked in, she's about 84. Yeah, ready for the reading. And she goes, okay. Oh, thank you. Writing all these things to thank you. She goes, well, you're going to get remarried. Okay. You're going to move to America. Okay. And you're going to work for God, and you're going to live off donations. Oh, okay. So, here we are. And that's what we do,
what was the last one? You're going to live off the what?
Donations.
Oh, live off donations. Okay. All right.
And I was in the corporate world earning piles of money, and I thought, okay, I didn't dismiss it. I was just thinking, well, that's pretty extreme, moving to America. Here we are, Yeah. And I'll now live in Missouri. And I love it. I love it over here. It's really amazing. So, but, when I moved over here in 2010, before that, 2007, I went completely bankrupt. Lost everything, millions of pounds, whatever, who cares? I don't care about money or stuff, But I traveled around the world quite a lot. I realized, and I went to Belize, and I had quite a vision there, which I went on a Mayan temple in San Ignacio called Cha'antovich. It's a very powerful, structure because it's on ley lines. And it really raised my vibration. I got, visions of my past lives. I said, I'm meant to be focusing on the healing. And I'd done healing, but not really focused. And so I spent 4 years meditating, understanding how the healing gift works. And to me, it's really important to learn your particular gift, because if you use someone else's modality, you might shortchange your abilities, because everyone's gift is different. So anyway, so after that, I moved to America, it's Christopher Macklin Ministries. The Global Enlightenment Project is a project of the ministry, and basically started doing healings, and people kind of flocked. But at first opened the thing and said, you look at that Field of Dreams, build it, they'll come. They didn't. I'm going, I waited around for 3 months. Where is everybody, And I asked them Melchizedek B. I was born as a Melchizedek B, and 84% Melchizedek DNA. So I asked them, I said, where is everyone? They said, it's within. Get out there. Oh, okay. So the first small venture I ever went to, I had hundreds of people that weekend. It was like $100 for a table. And, you go there and you just see people, and people just came. And I thought, why are they coming to see me? And anyway, it just, took off from there. And now we have about 10 staff, doing different things, and I just focus on the healing, and I absolutely love it. Heal all sorts of things like cancers, things like emotional issues. I deal a lot with abductees, or did, until 2017, when the Greys were swept off the planet. But abductees, they were abducted. We could talk about that in a minute. And, cystic fibrosis, we actually get rid of morgellons, Lyme disease, HIV. We have a protocol for stripping it out of the body. So it's been perfected since 2010. So it's been a lot of work, but I absolutely love it, So I absolutely love doing healing for people and seeing, to me, I never want to be anyone's guru. I don't believe in gurus. It's all nonsense. I believe you are your own guru, and my job is a kind of facilitator to help you get back there, raise your vibration, get rid of the trauma, heal, past stuff. Because if you're a starseed person, you really are an empath. And I remember when I was younger, about 2 days ago, when I was in my 20s, I'm just joking.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah, I actually, my birthday was on the 10th of April, and I asked God this year for a discount. And they said you can have 30 years off, so I'm only 33. I'm okay. But it's interesting because, what was I saying? I've lost the train of thought. Sorry.
No, you were just talking about being an empath and just.
Oh yeah, it's really important. Starseed people, they're targeted, but they're so empathic that I remember when I was younger, if people talked behind my back at school, how can they do that? It would almost make me like throw up. It was that bad, and people say, oh, you just shouldn't be so sensitive. Well, we are, and never lose that sensitivity. But to be able to operate in this world, you have to kind of set boundaries. So yeah, a lot of people out there, I know they're listening. It's important. Never lose that beautiful person you are, sensitivity. Just navigate this world, set boundaries, and stay out of the matrix. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, wow. So a lot to take in. So I'll start with this. I'm on the same page with you. I went and I had a reading done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, I was just I'd been drinking and I was downtown on 6th Street. And there was this really heavy set lady. I think she was homeless, though. I don't think she was really actually good at what she did because she was kind of lazy about it. She didn't have tarot cards. She had a deck of cards, and she just laid them out and was like, yeah. She had the cigarette or cigar in her mouth. She was like, yeah, that one there, that's you may get married. And then I was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, probably a man or a woman, one of those two. And I was like, wow. And then she was like, you're gonna wear clothes a lot unless you're swimming or taking a shower.
That'll be $39.99.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. And then she was like, you may or may not drive. That's something that's up to you. I'm gonna let you decide that, And then I was like, yeah. And she's like, and if you eat ice cream really fast, you probably get a headache. And that was it. And I was just dumbfounded because it all came true.
It all makes sense.
I got married to a woman, and it was 100%. I wore clothes most of the time, unless I was showering or at the pool. And I get ice cream headache if I eat ice cream.
Well, she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't, dude. I mean, I was impressed. I was impressed. It was an impressive thing. I was like, wow, I feel like I should tip you, but I'm just really broke. And she's like, yeah, do what you want with that. That's good. So I put some 35 cents of gas, got home.
Just bring me a pack of Winstons.
This was back when I was in my 20s, a long time ago. So I was able to, you could get 35 cents, could probably take you a couple of miles. But yeah, so it's totally on the up and up. I have a couple things I wanted to tell you now. It's really interesting that you're talking about the healing thing. That right there, okay, that I really believe that if someone is able to tap into what we call the ether,
Yeah.
And we have several people who believe this. Nikola Tesla, not the least of which, and then of course Nikola Kozyrev. A lot of people don't know who he is. He believed this, and these are scientists, right? But then you also had Edgar Casey, who was really big, and he believed that and this is what goes back to infinite energy. People don't realize that there is energy all around us. We're paying for energy when we really shouldn't. And it really all came down, folks. I'm going to tell you this. It came down to one thing. When J.P. Morgan asked Nikola Tesla, he's like, you have infinite energy. How do I put a meter on it? And when Tesla says, well, no, this is free energy. And J.P. Morgan's like, not interested. And neither are my constituents. Believe me, none of us want that. We want people to pay. And of course, we ended up with Thomas Edison, who is a total, you wouldn't call him a fraud so much as just a, he's not
most of Tesla's things actually. But,
he's like a shill. Yeah. They just threw him in there so they could, and then they stole Tesla's work. And it was the world stayed ignorant. We kind of kept going down that slide. And I've had people talk about Tartaria. I don't really like the name of it because I know that that's not the actual name of it. That is the region in Russia where the Tartars lived. And I know
Yeah.
this because my dad's family's Cossack, and they were the ones that actually defeated the Tartars. It had nothing to do with them having a modern empire. They were just, like wild people. But there was something akin to that, and we had infinite energy, and we lost that ability to heal ourselves, to tap into the way to quote unquote do things. And so when you look at the food supply here in the United States, it's like, oh my gosh, dude, it's like night and day between us and Canada and even Mexico. Mexico and Canada don't allow these dyes and all these other crap. Mexico too. People don't realize that. It's very much more healthy to shop on the other side of the border. Years ago, when I would go to Mexico, I would sometimes go to the markets and stuff, and I would get food, and it just seemed cleaner. It seemed more like, when I was down in Monterrey, especially not on the border, but it was just a different whole. I felt better. I could eat the tortillas down there, and I wouldn't feel like I needed to take a nap for 3 days. And up here, you eat like a couple tortillas or some pizza dough or whatever it is, kind of bread or whatever. And you feel like you got to lay on the floor and digest like some kind of python, even if you didn't gobble up everything. You're just like, dude,
It's like a brick in your stomach.
yeah, you got this brick in your stomach, and it's, yeah, exactly. And then you just feel like straight up, just, I'm not gonna say the word, but it's horrible. So I think what's happening, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christopher, like we're eating all of this garbage, which I tell people constantly is directly tied to your spirit and your mind, body, spirit connection. Because I feel like crap when I eat crap, and then everybody.
I mean, also you got to remember, like here, they pick the food. I mean, bananas are radiated. It's got aluminum in it. I think it probably has in Mexico, but they pick the food. It goes to people like General Mills. It sits in the warehouse for like 6 to 8 weeks. It's died. The energy's gone from it. So when you get your pepper and you chop it up, you look at the pepper. It looks okay, but it's dead. There's no energy in it. If you pick the pepper off that plant that day, it's got energy, and you can feel it. It's because you're ingesting it, of course, your body's using that energy as well. So yeah, it's dead food, it's just this mass production thing, but you're right about Mexico and in the UK. I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but I went back there about 4 or 5 years ago before the, thingies happened, like the pandemic. And the food was delicious. And then, of course, now it's, I don't know what it's like now, but I haven't been back because I don't trust aircraft anymore. So,
yeah. Well, there's a lot of
bits are falling off.
But you're from Northwest England, right? That's where Chester.
Yeah.
Is. Okay, because right there where you're at, and I don't want to say there's like a triangle, but if you look at the map with Liverpool and Manchester, Chester, like those areas, like there is a lot of UFO activity right there.
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah,
it is seriously. I mean, it's crazy. So there's definitely something there. I had a remote viewer tell me that his name's, well, it didn't matter who he is, but he told me that he would like that area of England there, and for some reason at the very bottom of the southeast seems to be like this really heavy activity. And I know that there were sightings of these weird craft that go way, way back. And I know that the Vatican has been keeping track of the number of sightings of UFOs for centuries because I believe they know what it is. And I know that in Northumbria at one time, the Vatican had a sacred keep. Now, I don't know what happened to it. It was said to have been destroyed. This is back when England was more Catholic, before Henry VIII basically did away with it and became Anglican. But there was a keep there. And at that keep, excuse me, there was said to be like power, like, and there was like these pyramidal structures. And if you went there and you could get healed, like the Druids, that they believed that they could heal you. Yeah. And so something sort of akin to like, Stonehenge, but it was like with like these mounds, and they made like 3 of them. And just, he was talking about having seen it. And there were these entities that were like beings of light, basically. And you could go there to get healed. In the Catholic Church, they knew about it. And so they actually decided to get rid of the Druidic order. through the Templars, and they slaughtered them because they didn't want anybody knowing about this. So only the Pope could go there and get, and so there's some speculation from some different fringe groups. I'm not saying I believe this is what somebody told me, and there are other people that have said this, but that there's a noise. What is it? But there is some speculation that the Pope, that is one of the reasons why the English kicked them out, because the Pope had too much power. We know that. And Henry VIII wanted to, but he had a reason too. And he was looking for a reason because he knew that he wanted these special places. And when the Pope sent some emissaries there to convince him otherwise, he held them hostage and made them show him where they were at. This is supposedly with Henry VIII. And then every king after that, kind of knew. And it goes into the reptilian bloodline and how long they've been in power, but they are long lived now. Where before they lived like a normal amount of lives or whatever, but it started with the Tudors. And of course, his daughter, she was bald, and so everybody was like, dude, this chick wears a wig, like a red wig, but that red hair was her mother's hair, supposedly. But she wore that red wig, and then it was but they said that it was because she had this Nephilim bloodline. And so the kings and queens of England have had that. It was sort of more pronounced, and they took those energy stations away from the Catholic Church. And of course, the Emperor of Spain was charged with fighting England permanently because of their blasphemy of going against the Catholic Church. But I've heard of the St. George's Keep. Now, St. George, he wasn't Italian, So you hear about these stories, and then of course the Holy Grail, why they would be in England. Well, there are remote viewers and psychics that believe that area of Northumbria is where the Holy Grail was kept. People would ask the question, why would it end up in England? Jesus didn't have to take it there. The papacy did. And it's because they were traveling to those places of power with those pyramids. Have you heard of this? Do you know about this, Macklin? Have you heard
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And the pyramids are very powerful. I mean, the Giza pyramids have been shut down because they used to have a capstone and a massive, I think 7 or 8 foot Merkaba crystal on top. And the capstone was gold. The crystal is the same frequency, it runs at the same frequency as gold. And then you've got water in a moat around the actual the stone structure, which absorb water. So you've got a whole energetic, structure there at the same frequency. So it would get energy from the ethers. And it would fire it down. People would get healed. Now it's obviously to take the capstone off, so it was kind of shut down. They're still pretty powerful, but nothing like they used to be. Plus, I think the ley lines move as well, so they're not really on the ley lines that they used to be. And in fact, we've got a project. Might sound a bit out of a bit crazy. Who knows?
We're crazy here at PRT, so don't worry.
Is everyone crazy? That's good.
Yeah, everyone in the audience.
We're in the right room.
A little too late for that.
And even the ones that watch the replay, they'll be like, "Yeah, he's right. They don't have to be in the chat."
Yeah, the guy's nuts. But my main project is down here. We're building off-planet pyramids with the Arcturians, and what they're going to do is they're very different than the Giza ones. There's a lot of Moldavite involved, different things, technology 1,000 years in advance. They're building them, and they're going to be placed here, somewhere in America. Now, one is 999.99 feet tall, 66.6 feet tall, 333.33 feet tall, and they're going to be the small, the biggest one will be on a conjuncture of a ley line in the US. And then the other ones are on the Golden Curve, powering each other up. Why the heck are we doing that? Well, there's a lot of satanic symbology, and the ley lines need powering back up again. So actually, they're being built off planet. They'll be here when they'll be here. My job is to get the land, which is 100,000 acres. Obviously, I can't tell you where it's going to be because, all the deep state people start buying the land, but it's going to be in America, not too far from here. And the project is to help the planet, really activate the energy. So that's something I've known about for many years. And the Arcturians are building it, and they'll bring it down here at the right time. So,
and let me explain if people don't know who the Arcturian. Now, when you say the Arcturians, we're talking about the Arcturus star system, right?
Yeah, but these Arcturians, I mean, there's
The
in the
blues?
12th dimension. Yeah. There's a couple of Arcturian races in different dimensions, 7th and 12th dimension. And it's the ones in the 12th dimension who are building it. You might think, well, how the heck do they bring them here? If they have the technology to switch dimensions and
Stargate.
transport them, Stargate them, so
Yeah. And it sounds weird to sit here and talk about this like it's a normal thing. It's like I've heard this, and I know the Arcturians that there are typically when people talk about the Arcturians, they're talking about a loose federation. They're like several species, but there's two in particular. One is a very light, like a being that's almost like a light being, and they would have been the ones that made those pyramids in England, which are just now mounds, and people think those are just cute mounds, but they were these giant. And like he said, you have to have a capstone. The gold is very important because it's a conductor, and it coincided with the ley lines. And what you said was the ley lines had changed, and that is true. Just like the poles shift, the ley lines shift. Those pyramids are that I'm not talking tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And all they did was they put them on those ley lines, and then they would just like basically remodel or just like when the pyramid would start to fall apart, they didn't have to go build another one. They would just work on it and make it look new again. And it just something they did every century. Yeah. I say they as in whoever was involved, and that could have been anybody from the fallen angels, the Nephilim, whoever was using it, because people don't realize that the civilization probably, I would say probably 200,000 years old, built those pyramids. I'm not even joking. People think I'm crazy when I tell them that. And then the ancient Egyptians just capped, like he's talking about the capstone, they recapped it, and then they continued using it. But the ley lines moved just like the constellations. I always laugh when people say, well, I'm a Leo. I'm like, no, you're not, because you were not born under that constellation. You may still have those traits because it's an expectancy thing. What I mean by that is a collective consciousness that says, hey, this is the reality we're living in. So if you're born a Cancer, you're a Cancer, even though you're not really born under that constellation anymore. So due to the Earth's rotation, we've actually moved an entire constellation, and people don't understand that. And they don't really understand how the world looks or works. It's not the way people think it is. And not to get long-winded, and because you have a lot to say, but the Arcturians, predominantly, there would be two species, the light beings and then the blue ones. And so that is the Arcturians that I know of that are probably the most encountered. But there are a couple others that are. So when you say the Arcturians, are you talking about the whole council, or are you talking about just like 2 or 3 races that are in charge of the project you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of people in, from the 12th dimension, the faction of them that is actually doing it, and they've been working on it for a long time, So, yeah, the big muscly, I think they're blue, and they're going to bring them down here, and they will be down here, obviously, when they're sighted, because they're going to have to, but they're going to cloak them. But the problem is now, of course, the governmental system can see energetic, structures come down before you actually uncloak them. It's the same with craft, But I mean, I've always been able to see the veil. When I was at school, I used to see a ton of activity. You're right about, being around Chester and that area. There was a ton of activity. I used to see these craft. And I used to say to my friend, oh, look, there's a flying saucer thing, Where? Because they cloaked themselves, of course, at that time. Now they're actually starting to, they seem to want to actually expose themselves, in this, disclosure program. So who knows?
Yeah. Okay. So that right there, I think that they're going to give us what they want to give us. They're not going to, give us, more than like, they're not going to give us what we really need. Let's put it that way, to let us know, because they can't. It would be ridiculous. But they also have enemies. And I know that there is a species that we have dealt with many times throughout our history. And there are multiple levels of that species. What I mean by levels, I don't think that they're subspecies so much as it is just them breeding, each other like dogs, like they do with people. And that's the reptilians. Now, there's different types, but there's one in particular, the Drakes, and their whole goal was to, and this is my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they gave us certain amount of technology, right? And the Greys, the actual Greys, not the little biological robot little ones, but the tall Greys that,
the tall Greys,
they partnered with the reptilians. And in fact, there were a couple other species too, but in particular, the Greys did a lot of work here and in crossbred with the reptilians. That's why you get these weird reptilian gray look. They're actually an absolute hybrid, and they're very nasty and mean. And I think that they're more evil than probably either of those other species. They bred two basically malevolent species together and created this hybrid. But that hybrid has a better chance of sustaining itself on the surface here. And that's why they do what they do. And so the technology they gave us to watch out for what you're talking about, Christopher, like, oh, be careful for the internet, whatever. They tell the leaders of our planet, hey, that's evil, that's bad, or at least tell people that that's evil or bad, because that way they can't get the help they need. They want us, they want us to be sick. They want us to be unhealthy because they're our overlords. And in fact, the leader of the Drakes calls himself the Lord of the earth, and Jesus says that Satan is the Lord of the earth, and that would be on par with the Hashatan or the Shadim or whatever you want to call them, the Jinn. That's what they are demonic. And so you have this leadership that's being puppeteered, so to speak, by this coalition of evil beings. That is the theory anyway, and that they're basically interchangeable with demonic, and their main form is not even physical. It's actually a lot lighter than us. It's kind of like what we would think of as our soul, but it's a little more dense, and they can become dense. They can move in and out of density like it's unbelievable, and people don't understand it. They could just like walking through a liquid suit that makes you look a certain way. They don't have to dress like we do. They don't have to do the things we do because they're more etheric. And when they built this system, they only gave us enough technology to be able to repel the good stuff. I'm not joking. And so that craft that they back engineered, they're like, yeah, we're going to give you this craft, but we're going to take the hyperdrive out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you will know how to do, it's like having a really nice muscle car, but not having the V8. You're just, it's a V6. It'll go faster than most cars.
Let's put a governor on it.
And so you're not getting.
Or even if it might be worse, a 4-cylinder, like 1.2 liter, muscle car with a 1.2 liter engine. What's going on here?
Makes a lot of noise.
Exactly. It'll be loud.
Cheekiness they get up to.
But I think that's what they've done. I don't know if you agree with that, Christopher, if that assessment.
Well, I do, well, it's interesting because they've given us a lot of technology. The interesting thing, there's a couple of things about the Greys. They gave us, obviously, nanotechnology, which is we have no business having. This is kind of dangerous stuff. They also, they gave us, obviously, anti-gravitational craft, different technologies. And what's interesting is, obviously, for abduction. So, obviously, I think it was Hitler who signed the contract first, but... So they're abducting people, and they started off abducting people, stealing eggs, sperm, guys and women, and trying to make humanoids in pods. The problem they didn't realize, of course, is that if you want a proper human soul in a human body, you need a woman's womb because it needs that God energy to be able to bring it through. If you try and birth something straight in a pod, then you're going to get a draconian AI robot. Hence non-player characters. So what they ended up doing is they were actually abducting women, seeding them, getting them pregnant, and then putting them back down here, waiting. They put like monitors on them, what do they call them? Little chips in them to monitor like the womb implants. Yeah, that's it. That's what I was looking for. So they put implants, they could read it. Oh, the soul's in. So they'd actually abduct them again, take the fetus out. Now the soul is with the fetus, and of course, then they can put them in a pod and bring them up. So that was actually stopped in 2017.
It's interesting what you're talking about the abductions, and let's go back for that, because you're talking about the abductions and who signed the contract, whatever. I think it goes way back further. I think Hitler was a shield.
It does,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think he was set there. I mean, and people are going to argue this all day long, but there was a guy, he was the 29th president, and his name was Woodrow Wilson. And for my money, I think he was the first one in the United States, because he was the president during World War I. And he was also, get this, he was instrumental in creating the League of Nations. But one of the things he wanted to do, he didn't really want. He warned America after the war, hey, let's pull back and let's not be so in everybody's business. Let South America do what it's going to do. Let Europe do what it's going to do. And let's not get into Asia. So why would he be so into going to war during World War I and grabbing everything he can? And then, because he did, okay. And then England, they made a deal that really just screwed them, but then, so England wins the war. The Turks were defeated. That was the main enemy. And I'll tell you why, because it was the falling Ottoman Empire. And they wanted to divide up Arabia because the Levant is where a lot of these energy places used to be. People always ask me why Mesopotamia was so, vibrant and whatever and hopping when it was just a desert. I said, because back then it wasn't a desert. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. That was the lush green, and that's where the Garden of Eden was. That's where the original everything was. That was the power station right there. Those pyramids were there for a reason. There were other pyramids that were destroyed, but people don't realize that was the goal of World War I, was to take that area of the Levant. And it was under now there's layers of this. There's a one layer. If you dig deep enough, you'll say, oh, Benjamin Friedman says that the Jewish League wanted that so they could create Israel, right? But then if you scratch the surface a little further, you're like, that actually is just one place you'll stop at, because you think, oh, okay, I figured it out. No. But they always throw one rock and hit 3 targets, right? Hit 4, 5, 6 targets, whatever. They don't even a dozen. That was just one step. And that's also to stop the person that doesn't scratch far enough. They also wanted to make it America turn inward so that we had the technology only shared by one other country. And that was because British intelligence was actually really badass, and you weren't going to keep anything from them. I mean, the James Bondy stuff seems kind of cute and stuff, but for my money, the SAS is probably the most potent of them, and the Mossad are probably the most potent intelligence agencies on Earth. Britain was like, well, we're small, and Russia's so big. It's a communist country, but we're smart and we're clever, and we've ruled with just an island nation, and we'll do it again because we're going to use our brains.
Rule Britannia.
Yeah, no more.
Yeah, but that's
slaughter pens.
That's because we partake of afternoon tea. It's becoming a system. It's really funny. Right? Yeah. I've got to tell you a story. So, I was sitting in front of the immigration officer, and I answered all the questions. He goes, "Is there anything that could make you American?" He says, "What's the problem?" I go, "I can't give up afternoon tea." He goes, "I don't think we're really worried about that."
Yeah, but tea is actually good in the afternoon. I had a lady who was one of my mom. She actually babysat my mom when my mom was little. She was a white lady. My mom is Hispanic, but this lady was like a second mom to my. Her name was Terry Windland, and her husband, we called him Papa John. But this is back before Papa John's Pizza, right? But every afternoon they had tea. And the reason is because Terry had lived in England for like a decade, and she was like, "It's tea time," and she talked with a transatlantic, not that like a British, but she had a transatlantic, and she had learned to speak. She's like, "This is how people when they speak proper," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm not doing that, but hey, that's great, And so she taught me about that, and she would always ask me 1 or 2, and I was like, I'd always forget what she's talking about, and she's like, "Sugar cubes." And I'm like, okay, I'll take 1. Because even as a kid, I didn't really have a sweet tooth. But yeah, I would stay with him a lot, and I would drink tea, and I'd look at my watch or clock, whatever, because back then we didn't have cell phones, and I'd be like, "Hey, Terry, it's almost tea time." And she was like, "Oh, it is." And then she would go, and she would drink it twice a day. She drank it once an hour before lunch, and then she would drink it at like 4 in the afternoon or whatever. That was 3 or 4. I can't remember what it was. And then dinner was like 6, and it was like clockwork that she always did that. And so they were really cool people, but I learned about the benefits of drinking tea. And I remember it like relaxing me, even though it gives you kind of like a caffeine, if it's
buzz. Yeah. Well, plus afternoon tea, you need petit fours, and you need scones, preserve, and clotted cream.
Crumpets.
Crumpet, a spot of crumpet.
Yeah, that's funny. Scones. So let me ask you this: what we were talking about though with the Woodrow Wilson thing, do you agree with that assessment? Because
I do actually. Yeah. Because they
I
tried
really
to
always
blame Eisenhower for, you know,
No,
the
he inherited
project. Yeah, he inherited it, and they said, "Look, you know, we'll kill your family if you don't sign it." But I definitely think it's Woodrow for sure.
And I think that was one of the reasons why Patton died too, because he wasn't going along with all this crap that was happening. At the end of the war, he was like, "What is this? This isn't correct." And he saw, what's his name, Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He saw Roosevelt and Churchill as traitors. Like he was just like, and he said that, which was like, ooh. And Eisenhower was charged with getting rid of him, and I think that's what he did. And I think MacArthur, they actually recalled MacArthur back to the States, and he chose to stay in Japan. And he was like, "If you want me to come back, come get me." And the military industrial complex, the Japanese actually protected him. It was like he had the fleet there, the Westpac, but he also had Japan. And Japan looked at him as like this god emperor. I'm not even joking. Like they thought of him as like, oh man, he's all powerful. He, defeated us utterly. So he actually threatened to rearm the Japanese and be like, I'll turn this into a war machine if you try to. And so they kept on trying to get rid of him because he was afraid he was going to suffer the fate of Patton. He himself wanted war with Russia too. He wanted to use the Navy. He said, we can knock them out. We can invade from Siberia, and then Patton invades from the other side, and it's a bada bing, bada boom. It's over. We don't have communism. But I think there was more at play there because I believe, and this is my opinion, I think that communism is the flavor of the reptoids. I think they really like it.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what they want. And so I believe Hitler, he signed a deal, not with them, but with the Nordics, but he started out with the Greys. And I think that when the Nordics presented themselves to him, he did make efforts into Finland and the White Order of Thule and all that, and the Norway, Sweden, where those openings are. There's openings in the north up there. And so he sent expeditions. And I think that that's where they got the idea like, oh, let's make a deal with these guys. I honestly believe this too. I believe that's what did them in. Because if he would have stayed the course, the reptilians and the Greys would have totally been okay with him and taking over and dominating Europe and the planet. The problem was because he had an ally in Argentina who was going to dominate,
South America.
Yeah. And then the United States, if we would have sided with them, we would have had North America. Hitler has Europe. He has the British Isles. He has, the North Africa, whatever. That's all they needed. They wanted whatever. Asia, Japan would have completely dominated Asia. And people will say silly things because they don't know history. And they'll be like, well, they were going to fight each other. I'd be like, it would have been the stupidest thing they could have done because none of them would have had the ability for decades to do that, even with atomic bombs. And they wouldn't have been able to because the planet needed to be harvested by a reptilian species. And part of this plan was to warm the planet up, which they're doing, by the way, and be able to turn this into more of a greenhouse that's more efficient for them because when it's cold up here, they can't live in the cold. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they make hybrids and they have reinstituted genes in themselves so they can withstand it. So they warm the planet up. Eventually they won't have to. They can go back to their biosphere, where it's like more better for them, whatever. But anyways,
I also think that what they're trying to do is reduce the oxygen as well, because the reptilians underground don't breathe the level of oxygen that we do. That's why, all the Gates Foundation, all these people are spraying. I mean, it's not just spraying just to actually, keep the sun out. I mean, it keeps the sun out. They're spraying to keep the sun out to reduce the plant life, but also obviously there's all this nanoparticle stuff in it, to sink through people's skin. So yeah, it's a crazy situation.
Speaking on that, the depopulation too, because there's so many people that get caught up in the depopulation. Depopulation will happen naturally. And if you guys have ever, I don't know if you have, Christopher, and I'd be curious to know if you've heard of this, but there was an experiment with rats, and it was called the 24 experiment. If you heard of this, look it up, Anthony. Mm-hmm. Look up the rat experiment 24. And if you look it up. So what happened was, and I believe it was one of your fellow Englishmen that did the experiment, and he basically got the same answer over and over and over again. And that is absolutely what's happening now. Is that what it's called? The 24 experiment?
I'm looking it up now.
I can't remember that exact name. I think that's it, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is.
it's a 24 rat experiment is often confused with John B. Calhoun's famous series of rodent studies on the effect of overcrowding and social breakdown, ultimately culminated in the Universe 25 experiment.
25, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what they did was they had these rats, and they put them all together, and then they show the same breakdown. He did it over and over and over again, Christopher. He just kept doing it. And every time it was the same results. The rats would actually start to turn on each other, and then they would stop breeding. And it was like the social decay that you literally see here right now before our eyes on our planet. You're seeing this. You're seeing men, what they call migtos. And it's sort of an alt-right term, but it means men going their own way. And now I'm going to say something a little not politically correct, but there's a name for women. It's called thought, T-H-O-T, and it just means something derogatory. But yeah, that is the prevailing mindset of men now, because men say, and I've read this, I've heard this, people say this. What do we get out of marriage other than maybe you might lose half of what you have because we're expected to provide for everything. When there's a special occasion, the man gives the gift, the man gives the ring, the man gives and the girl's responsibility is basically not much. And then they have children. This is what these young men think, right? Because my generation is a little different. But they have children. Maybe it's true. I don't know. I don't know the younger female generation that well. But they have children, and then they just end up having to pay for these children, and the women use them, to be subsidized by the government and blah, blah, blah. And so there's really no upside for it. But if you see the experiment with the rats, that's exactly what happens. Like it literally. And a lot of these rats end up becoming homosexual, and they only want to be with each other. They don't, and it's just like a weird thing, but it kept happening over and over and over again. And it was like the societal breakdown. And it's almost like a weird socialist, communistic, whatever. And they want us to they want to be enough people on the planet to be slaves and food, believe it or not. And then but they don't want a bunch of people. So they don't have to depopulate us. That's going to happen on its own. It's already happening. Birth rates are now dropping like a rock. People don't believe this. They have no idea. Universe 25. That's what it's called, Paul. Yeah, we figured it out, but I was trying to remember what it was called, but sometimes I don't remember. But what do you think of that? Do you think that that's what's happening, Christopher? Do you think that that's what their goal is, or end game, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that their end game is definitely to depopulate. But the interesting thing, I mean, have a look at the population. I've got it up here. So for the last 500 years, does this make sense? So in 1500s, according to Google, can you believe? Who knows? But according to 1500s, it was about 438 million people on the planet. That's million. 1600s, it's gone up to 500 million. Okay, well, 40, 50, about 60, whatever million increase. So 60 million increase. So 1600s to 1700s, it's gone from 500 to 610. So that's 110 million increase. 1700 to 1800, it's gone up to 1 billion. That's a massive increase in 100 years. Bearing in mind that supposedly, in quotes, people have 2.2 children, and of course, in 100 years, the parent's going to die. So does it make sense? Probably not. And then from 1800 to 1900, it goes to 1.6 billion. That's 600 billion more. That's a massive increase. From 1900 to 2000, it goes from 1.6 billion to 6.144 billion. So something's going on here. There's lots of candlelit dinners and lovemaking. Who knows? There's definitely something not quite right. And then from 2000 to 2024, it's gone from 6.144 billion to 8.7 billion. So who's manufacturing the babies? What's going on? And the answer is there's probably about 72 to 75% of non-player characters where they've been birthed in pods with a draconian AI soul.
Yep.
And you can see them a mile off. I mean, if you walk around, you can see that they're just shut down. They're not really indoors.
Mm-hmm.
There's no soul. If you look in their eyes, they're dead. And there's a lot of people. So they believe that they're going to expire this year. So we're going to lose a lot of population. If you look at the Deagle report, I think we looked at that at Deagle.com. They've predicted and been pretty correct over the last 10 years. But if you look at the population, for example, take two examples. United States, they said in 2017 there's 360.4 million people. In the United Kingdom, for example, there's, what's the United Kingdom? 63.39 million. And that was in 2017. They predict by the end of 2025, the United States will have 99.5 million and the United Kingdom will have 14.5 million. That's a massive drop. So, and you have to ask yourself, what's going to cause that? Well, the NPC is going to expire because they only last so long because they're not a proper human being. But there's also, of course, bioweaponry stuff going on, 5G going on, and all these things. So it's something to think about. And they've always said, because they keep saying, "Oh, watch the movie. Here's your popcorn." Well, that's great. We all know what's going on in the world. But they've always said for the most seasoned person, the end won't be for everybody. Even the most seasoned people will be really bothered. And I'm kind of sitting back thinking, yeah, I know about child trafficking. I've dealt with child trafficking. I've dealt with Illuminati fallout children. I've dealt with so many different things. I've seen so much abuse and everything else. Nothing surprises me. But if you ended up with, say, for example, 20% of the population at the end of 225, that would be quite significant. That would bother me, I think.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat earlier mentioned that they asked about when I said something about the Garden of Eden, where I think it is personally. I think it was in between the Euphrates and what is now at the mouth of what is the Euphrates and it's now an extinct river that has been for a long time. But the Euphrates is going dry and people need to really pay attention to that. But anyway, I wanted to answer that question, whoever it was that had asked that in the chat. Another question, or somebody said, yeah, but about the scientists with the rats. And I want to point this out. And this isn't to be snarky or be like, no, we're right, you're wrong. No, I'm just going to tell you what I think about that comment because that would make sense because, okay, the scientists absolutely controlled the rats. So what they're saying is, here it is. Java Titan says humans are different. Humans are different to a degree, right? But you're still talking about a society. And these scientists are now replaced with these beings that are in control. And so when you say, oh, yeah, here it is. He says the scientists controlled it. Humans are different. Yeah. Who do you think is doing it to us? Because it's being done to us by their version of scientists. But like what Christopher referred to, like these NPCs that just blindly, or even clones, straight up clones.
Yeah.
And their souls are so different than ours. And I'm actually glad to hear you say something that most people don't even comprehend. They don't think about it. It's not something that but when you're talking about their souls, these aren't human souls. I can see it from a mile, like you said, a mile away. They don't have souls. Yeah, Laughing Skull said,
well, they have an AI thing. They're an AI draconian kind of energy thing, but there's no soul there. So they're very checked out. They have no empathy. It's all about, everything. They can't even create a monologue. They're just like, I don't know, checked out beings. You can see it.
That was the thing that was kind of going around the internet for a while, where a lot of people were really surprised that this question popped up on the internet. Can you visualize an apple in your mind and rotate it? And of course, you would think, obviously, the overwhelming answer would be yes. But a lot of people, that not only did they say no, but they had no concept of that. Like they couldn't even fathom that. And A lot of people also answer no to the question, do you have an inner monologue? And that shocked a lot of people. And actually, so what you're saying, Chris, and what y'all are talking about, it just answers that question perfectly. Like
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
are not normal people.
No, they're not. And of course, you've also got shapeshifters as well. Like
Oh yeah.
The monarchy of England, and there's many around. You can tell. Obviously, you can see it. So yeah. So it's interesting because people never look at the population. I've only heard one lady, and I was listening to it was like a short podcast with her. She was Chinese, and she said, it's interesting because she believes that, China was saying there's 1.4 billion people. She believed by doing a survey that there was about 800 million. But of course, do you ever get the answer exact? The answer is probably not. But I think there's a lot less. But she said since 2019, she said, I've gone to different places like Beijing, whatever. She said there's nobody there. The streets are bare, the shops are shutting down, things are closing. And they said, oh, they've all moved to the country. So she went to the country and toured around a bit. Where's the people? Oh, they're all in the city. So there's such a disconnect between information. But I believe that actually, I think they're gone. I really do. Interesting. Yeah, I always look at the population because I think it tells you a lot of things. So.
And you think those are the NPCs who expired?
No, I think the bioweaponry, what happens is that the nanospheres have 92 viruses loaded in them. I've done a lot of research with this. I work with a world-leading toxicologist called Dr. Hildy. I won't give her a second name because they've bankrupted. They've done so much to her. God bless her. And she's been so dedicated to her work. But when I first learned about morgellons, which is what it is, nanospheres, nano tubes, I learned there's 92 viruses. Now, each virus is triggered by a separate frequency on 5G, gigahertz frequencies. 5G works between 30 gigahertz and 300. And so if you trigger one frequency, you'll release one virus. And what's turning up at the moment? Cerebella zoster. People are just hugging people and they're getting shingles, which is Cerebella zoster's, it's called chickenpox.
Oh, so they can selectively trigger different illnesses.
Yeah. But what happens if they do all the frequencies, all 92? People aren't going to make it because 92 viruses is too much. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and that's an interesting thing. And, of course, the morgellons, it's not, someone just put up, and I've had this before, morgellons is also a fungal infection. It's actually not. It acts like fungus. It grows like fungus, but it's nanotechnology. And the reason for that is because what do you need for growth? Carbon. Oh, you've got graphene. What they do is the Zeta Gray technology, what they do is they bind stuff to the actual graphene, like beryllia with stealth pathogen lime, like nylon 3633. Now, a shirt is nylon 9, you've got silicates, you've got a whole host of things. And so it grows through the body, but I'll agree with you that it acts like fungus. It grows like fungus through the body, but it's not fungus, it's nanotechnology. Just wanted to clear that up because I've worked with this stuff since 2010, and we have a protocol for stripping the stuff out of the body, but it's about a 35-week program. So so it's interesting.
Okay, so what you said though about this is what's weird, and I want to say this. You were talking about AI earlier, and you were talking about the nanotechnology. People need to understand something. The nanotechnology literally is based on, I'm not even joking, it's based on that.
It's AI. It's got to the nanotubes have got CMOS complementary metal oxide transistor arrays. They've got computers in them. They can transmit frequencies, and I saw a thing the other day on YouTube, and it was basically saying, if you want to know whether someone's taken, ingested the nanotechnology, I'm sure you'll know what I mean. Got to be careful because we're on YouTube. But if you want to know that, all you have to do is switch the I think it was the identifier of the Bluetooth off. So you don't need a name. It'll just show you this Bluetooth around, like devices. Can't remember how to do it. Look on YouTube. The guy did explain it. So if you switch that identifier, because normally you go near something, it'll only identify named Bluetooth devices. But if you switch that off, you get all the unnamed ones. So if you get within 6 feet of someone who's got the nano inside them, they light up on the Bluetooth. Really interesting.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It's insidious.
So, yeah. And
if you want to know how to do it, I mean, I don't know how to do it but have a look on YouTube. There's a guy there, you know, for Android and for Apple, he'll go through its settings, you know, and yeah, you go near someone. Oh, there's a Bluetooth person, you know. Interesting.
Yeah, in the nanotechnology, it imitates like a fungus, the way it moves and whatever.
Yeah, but people have said it's a fungus. It's not. I've seen electron microscopes and stuff. I mean, if it's bound with certain materials, and depending on which chromosome is damaged. The thing is about these things is that the old way, people got morgellons, so they were dusted with, they call it in quotes, smart dust. So it gets in the body. And because it's 10 to minus 9 and 6 through the skin, you have to damage the DNA because DNA, RNA, immune system all connected. So you don't get immune response to repel it. Therefore, what happens is it starts to grow. But in the new ingestion way, since 2019, they've got a thing called CRISPR technology. So it's all in the same. It's all in the same tube. You know, in it goes. CRISPR technology splices your chromosomes. And then again, DNA damaged. What happens also is that because you splice the chromosomes, your light body in your DNA is not compatible with your soul. So what's happening is people's souls are lifting out their body like an inch or two. And so they become checked out. And then what happens? Oh, in come entities. And it's the Archon covenant. In come Archons. I mean, Archons have no body. They float through second, third, and fourth dimension. So they attach. So that's why people have ingested it, kind of become checked out, but aggressive at the same time. My daughter's an example, actually. So I'm not going to go there.
It's a different. Yeah, I think though too. What you're talking about. Okay, so there's a lot to unwrap here. Let's start with this. The AI, you know, is basically the tool. It's a tool that they use to build the nanotechnology that can absolutely co-opt your body. And morgellons, I think, is just a microcosm of that. And if you look at it, dude, and you see how it responds, like it'll recoil and go back into the, I think it's a DNA, or what it is spliced, you know, and it's based on fungus. And I think that the AI templated it and it made it that way. I've always thought that it was not a completely fungal thing, because fungus doesn't have that kind of ability. But if you were to take it and give it to this demonic AI, and you said, "Hey, can you make this into something?" It'll go, "Yeah, let me find it," and it'll find a way that it can get into your body and co-opt you, and then it attacks the nervous system, and it becomes who you are. You know,
well, it actually grows the whole body. You become transhuman because
you become transhuman. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because people say, "Oh, just detox it, use zeolite, something." You can't. Why is that? Because it's actually part of your tissue, you know, and it's actually grown. You know, DARPA developed it. You know, when it was given by the Greys, it's actually grown. You know, the nanoparticles are grown. How they grow it, I don't know, but and they bind all this materials to it, and the AI is actually inside it. You know, it's actually inside the nanosphere and also the nanotube. So, you know, they can actually monitor your body. They can monitor your heart rate, anything they want if they come near you, or even if they, you know, beam down something to pick up the frequencies. So very interesting, very crazy stuff, but very interesting. I always remember, you know, I was speaking to Dr. Hildy and I said, I feel overwhelmed. She goes, why? Don't be overwhelmed by it. And I said, no, it's not by the stuff. I mean, the stuff is evil, full stop. But the fact that someone could actually develop this stuff and put it in people's bodies, because, you know, with morgellons, you get bugs coming in. People used to say, oh, these people are just insane. They're just making it up. I can tell you they're not. I've seen this stuff. I've seen it under microscopes. I've seen it under electron microscopes. I've dealt with it because, you know, my view is, if you don't understand how something works, you can never heal it. You've got to understand how it operates. And it's even got a metallic structure which can actually shift out of this dimension. You know, that again, that's been given to us by the Greys. So, you know, this stuff is very, very crazy. And I developed a technique to actually lock it on a timeline. So if it gets out the If it gets in another dimension, when it comes back here, it's locked on an Akashic record timeline. It can't move. And it's actually had amazing success with morgellons and getting the thing that if people have ingested since 2019 out of the body.
Yeah.
Completely.
The graphene. Now, here's another insidious thing, and I don't want to get in trouble with the YouTube algorithm, whatever, but I'm going to say this. We should not be giving so many vacations. Let's put it that way to people, especially starting as children. You don't need to give that many vacations. There's so many vacations, in fact, that these children are taking them, and they're instantly developing autism. Like 1 in 32 now. When I was a child, it was like 1 in 100,000 or something, and now it's like 1 in 32.
Even 10, 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Rapidly.
I mean, in fact, my wife's child, she's actually non-verbal, everything else, and I adopted her about, I think it's 6 years ago now. But it's really sad to watch because they're pretty aggressive because they're all in there, but obviously the damage that it causes to above here is a problem, and they can't express themselves, so they get aggressive, and it's sad to watch. It really is sad.
And what do you think we're headed with all this? Because you have the apparatus in place, you have the AI, you have the back engineered technology that they've given us to use all of this. And I'll say this, somebody just said the glyphosate. Now here's what I'm going to say, and you can give me your opinion. I don't know, this is, maybe I'm right or wrong, but the glyphosate, the graphene, all of these different substances layered, stacked on top of each other. I used to work with chemicals, and I can tell you that, and I know the alchemical table and all that stuff. So I was training to take a higher position at this company that I used to work for. What we did, Christopher, was we stripped gold and lead, with matex and nitric and all these other acids. And I knew a lot about it. So I got hired right away. And they were like, "Did you go to school for this?" I'm like, "No, but I've memorized the alchemical table." And I just started repeating it and told them, and they said, "Okay, you got a job." So they put me on the line. Within 2 weeks, I was in charge. And then I could also speak enough Spanish to where I could have the people that this needed to do, do this, do that, whatever. So it's me and this other guy from Nicaragua. And we were basically like teaching everybody how to do things. He had things, that he understood, but it was the chemicals that I understood. And I could tell you this, mercury is like one molecule away from gold. And Japanese scientists have now figured out a way to make gold. Now,
wow,
they did this purely with a physical, the ability of the third density, right? The third, whatever we're at. Imagine the people who have the technology to communicate with these higher densities, like the 4th, 5th, or 6th, and they get the help that they need, from that etheric highway. They could make infinite amounts of gold. They could do all kinds of things. They could literally warp reality to make it whatever they want it to be. But here's the catch, and people don't get this. They're like, "Well, what can we do against beings that can do this?" You can do it too. That's the good thing. Like what you're doing, Christopher, I like it's called the Global Enlightenment Project. You're trying to bring enlightenment to the people, and you're healing them, but it's not you healing them, but it's that energy, that God energy, but God bestows it upon all of us. I'm telling you the truth. And at the end of this show, I want to say something. I'm going to say something about the power that we actually have imbued in us through God. And I I saw it happen the other day with my own eyes. I witnessed something, and it wasn't like shocking to me because it's happened so many times in my life. Like I know that it's there and it comes from within. What's his name? Snyder. I forgot the guy from Dulce. He got attacked. He ended up with part of his fingers missing. Was it Phil Schneider? I think it was Phil Schneider.
I think it was.
He was the one that went around telling everybody. He said these grays zapped us with something that came from within their solar plexus. And everybody's like, "Wow, how do they have that kind of technology?" That is not even a technology thing. That's a spiritually like advancement thing that they use. They literally just take energy and they just, you know, and then boom, they blast you with it. It's just energy that's free out in the air, out and whatever. And to us, it's some kind of magic or something because we can't figure it out. And then this stuff that they make, you know, that is slowly coiling its serpent coils around us. So by the time that we're in our 40s or 50s, if you've had all these shots, you're just like, you know, it's destroying part of your memory. It's destroying part of your cognitive ability, your ability to speak, your ability to comprehend, your comprehension abilities. Your reflexes are slower, and you are a sitting duck. And I'm telling you that let me tell you something, Christopher. I don't know if you've heard this. This is something I observed on my own. I didn't have to look this up or anything. My nephews, their generation, dude, they don't remember anything before like the age of like 8 years old.
No,
it is
yeah.
unbelievable,
Not
dude.
much.
And then the next generation, like, right, you and Zane and Tony were talking about, well, if you think we're bad, look at the next generation, the Zoomers. They don't even have memories from when before 12.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going like, what is going on here? How do you not remember? How do you not know what happened to you? So many of y'all's friends would come to the house and I would talk about being a child and they would mention things like, well, I don't remember much. I don't remember that. You know, they like, how do you not remember? The only thing they remember is sitting there playing video games and eating high fructose corn syrup. That's it. That's all they know. I mean, I'm dead serious. That's, you know, the mom.
True, actually, yeah.
Then let's hand them a scrying mirror, aka iPad or whatever, and let's go to town, kid. Look up whatever kind of mind garbage that they want to throw into your brain through their conditioning and all this other crap that they've been pushing on us. And these people have been at it for a long, long time, and they have perfected it.
Oh,
And
they
now
have, yeah.
oh, man. How do we get rid of it, though? How do we unseat them in the way that so like the stuff that's happening to us into our bodies, right? The black goo. I know you've heard of this black goo that they're finding in people's bodies. How do we?
Yeah, it's part of the gray. It's part of the gray technology. It's part of morgellons. It has black goo, which is actually, you know, they bought their black goo here and put it in the planet. You know, I don't know whether people realize, but all this nonsense I believe about oil is the black goo of this planet.
Yeah.
And it's like the planet's alive. It can regenerate it. So all that nonsense, oh, we're going to run out of oil. You'll never run out of oil. You know, it's like, you know, if you take a pint of blood, you know, you give your blood away to a transfusion service or something, you know, how long does it take to regenerate? A week, you know, and that's what happens with the planet. The black goo, or the oil in quotes, but they bought their black goo here, which is treacherous because it has a consciousness. You know, it's the blood of the planet, so it has a consciousness. So they brought theirs down, and it's affected our planet. You know, a lot of it.
Oh yeah,
not all of it. That's why the planet's in kind of chaos at the moment.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Yeah, because
so it's like giving someone an incompatible blood transfusion.
You've heard me talk about this, Anthony. You are the only other person that I've ever spoken to in this field, though, that has said what I've been thinking and what I've said to you, Anthony. That the oil. I've heard people say now the oil could possibly be the blood of the earth. I say could possibly. It is absolutely.
It is. Yeah,
it is regenerative.
Yeah, you've told me
like the blood of the earth.
Of its own.
Yeah,
I've got to share something with you. It's interesting because last year I told you that the Vatican hit me with an energy weapon, melted my two cusps of my aortic valve together. So, and I got really sick real quick and almost died. It's the 290th time they've tried. So, anyway, I asked the beings, you know, because the beings off planet, you know, the way I do healing is we actually open a portal to the ultimate dimension. Well, 8 portals, put it around people, and then put 27 esoteric Merkaba fields around. That means they're safe. And if you don't know what a Merkaba is, there's a kind of crystal one, just to, you know, yeah, 2 tetrahedrons in reverse. And then what we do is the Melchizedek beings are from the ultimate dimension. They can come down and do psychic surgery, of course. So anyway, so in 2009, before that, my blood was O negative, yeah, which is, you know, RH negative, alien, who knows. But anyway, I changed my DNA. I decided, because our DNAs are damaged by agrobacterium, GMO foods, or in things you ingest in the past, those, or it's damaged by CRISPR technology. Now, either one doesn't matter. So transmissional frequency is everything. So anyway, I decided in 2009, I got the Melchizedek beings in, and I did a complete DNA repair and reset. So they went in the cell where life began, repair all the chromosomes, connect all the helix together, reset the DNA of that cell back to the blueprint, and then cells around it. It took about 15 to 18 weeks. So anyway, yeah, and they talk about the junk DNA. Dale said, they connect all the helix together, so all your DNA is active. So anyway, I went into hospital, got this heart valve replacement, slice you open, heart valve, open heart surgery, because the being said that we couldn't do it quick enough. You're going to die before we actually repair it. So, well, okay, let's go. Anyway, worked well, but my blood doesn't clot. It's the platelets don't clot very well. So they gave me 3 pints of blood, and they said, "Oh, we're going to have you a blood transfusion." I said, "That's okay, They said, "Well," I said, "I'm O negative." They said, "Well, we've got to check." They went and checked, and my whole blood has changed to A negative, which is really interesting after that DNA. So I'm just pointing out the DNA, RNA immune system, it's all connected. So it's interesting.
I wonder if, because I thought that I was O negative.
Yeah,
And
you were saying that.
Yeah, years ago.
Yeah.
Because I was literally, I'm going to tell you something. And when I got it checked, I'm not going to tell anybody what my blood type is now, but it's not. That is not what it is now. And mine is the same as like 3 other people who have told me the same thing. Now, they've told me this. I don't know how that happened, or because I knew my blood type. I knew it was because my dad had that. And I was like, what is that? Like, why, what makes that happen? I'm not real sure. But
DNA damage.
Yeah.
It changes. Yeah. And I changed mine back, of course, but it's really interesting. DNA damage can change it to something else. So it's masking who you are. Because if you've got an OH negative blood type, you definitely are, a starseed type, alien type being. You've got, I mean, some of the aliens with starseeds, some of the starseed people, they've had to abduct the mothers because like the Arcturians, you need a certain level of DNA of an Arcturian to be able to put the soul in for the light body. And the same with Melchizedek. My mother was abducted, but some, like Palladians, don't. Their soul will sit in a normal human body. So, some of the starseeds mothers, they agree before they come down here. They're abducted, they're seeded, and bring the starseed soul down here. So, but of course, your blueprint in the Akashic record, which is the blueprint of your DNA, which should be here. Of course, even when you're in the mother's womb, they're ingesting all this stuff. You've got transmissional frequencies and different things. It's going to affect your DNA for sure. So your DNA can change. Your DNA, RNA, immune system, all connected. So RNA, the blood type can change for sure.
That's so freaky, because I thought and I still do. I think it has a lot to do with the Mandela effect too, because I think that they're jumping timelines as fast as they can because they're hitting walls and they keep trying to go through. And it's a Luciferian system. And I believe it's very Luciferian. They're trying to jump, and they look at him as, he rebelled against God. Well, there are those, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I've studied this, and there are people that believe that he rebelled against the demiurge, which is someone that Jesus doesn't even really recognize other than being Satan. So he's like, that's not the same guy. That's, and so there's this big debate about, is Lucifer actually the opposition to the Satan god that controls the planet? And I tell people, no, that I don't think it's a big trick either. I think it's pretty just laid out there. I think people overthink things. And I think that it is really one and the same, but they're not the same being, but they're one and the same. They're interchangeable. That's why the Yazidi call him the peacock god, and that he's been forgiven by the bigger god. But that bigger god is El. That's not and his son was Enlil, I guess you could say, and then Yahweh was one of the 13 that followed him, or 12, and then he made the 13th or whatever. But that's not the main God. That's not the God that Christ talks about, because Christ is talking about someone completely different. And I know that when you say anything people get upset. Now, one thing I've learned over the years too is that my audience is going to come to me. I'm not going to run after them and tell them, hey, come here and listen and look at what I'm telling you. If you want to come and you want to hear, theories and possible, whatever about this, great. I don't profess to have all the answers, but just in doing this show the last 6 years, I've learned a lot, and I can pretty much have a conversation with anybody. And, I didn't know a whole lot about you, Christopher, other than the little bit that I'd read from, I guess, your publicist. And so I was excited to get on here and talk to you because I just read a little bit about what you were about. Now, the abduction phenomena, I want to say something about that, and you can tell me. You have a lot of experience with that. Now, you yourself are an abductee. Is that correct?
No. I've gone off. Well, I've gone on ships and gone off planet.
So that's not the same as being abducted. But
no, abductee is where and I actually chaired the Galactic Federation with two other Melchizedek beings. In 2017, we
You're
had
saying
a meeting.
Melchizedek, right?
Yeah, Melchizedek. Yeah, I was born as an actual Melchizedek being. My DNA is 84% Melchizedek being. Melchizedek. That's why when they opened up the heart, they said, "Oh my God, your heart's huge." And before they did the operation, they had to figure out a way, because my heart valve is so big, it's bigger than the ones they have on the shelf. So they're kind of, what the heck do we do? So we're going to make the hole smaller. And so it was a bit of a mess about. They wanted to do it, another way through the artery, but they said, we can't, your heart's too big and your valve is too big. So we have to reduce the hole. But anyway, that's a long story. But Melchizedek being. So I've lost my train of thought again. Sorry.
Well, you were basically just saying, you're talking about Melchizedek, and you were talking about, your DNA and
yeah.
I kind of feel like we just both went off. I was listening to you.
I know
I'm kind of like lost too.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Well, another thing too, this happens to you and me. I'm sure it happens to you too. When you start to get real deep into this and go down that rabbit hole, it feels like you kind of get hit with something that kind of throws you off. Like they are really throwing, because it's been happening to me the whole show, where they're trying to.
Yeah. Or sometimes you can channel things. I remember going to Hawaii, and I was doing a big lecture there. It was about 2 hours, a lot of people there, and I started doing the lecture. And when I'd finished, I thought, oh, it's finished. It was so, I kind of almost channeled it. I wasn't even focusing on what I was saying. And when I finished it, I said to a colleague of mine, was that okay? He goes, yeah, it was fantastic. And I couldn't remember what I said. So, and I think also, nowadays, because of the amount of work I do, I can remote view into people's bodies. I'm in the ethers talking to because that beings, I'm doing things. So when you come down here, it's very difficult to get grounded. And people say, you should get more grounded. Why? Why would you want to be here on this planet completely 24/7? Yeah, I wouldn't, so to me, I think there's always a balance between getting reprieve in the ethers and, letting your mind go, and then coming back here and being grounded again. That's why I don't drive much. My wife says, you don't even concentrate. So I said, I'm driving. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And so for those who don't know who Melchizedek is, he's first mentioned in Genesis, and he's basically like the head of the order of the priesthood of the Hebraic order. And Jesus was the one that assumed that mantle. He was the one that was, that took the mantle of the order of Melchizedek. So it's the same DNA. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And there's a range of them, of course. I mean, there's 5 Melchizedek beings down here now. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's just interesting. I mean, to be honest, past lives doesn't matter. To me, what matters is what you do now. And, I'm all about service to others, getting things out. That's why, we ran a non-for-profit. That's why twice a week I do an hour healing where it covers a lot of things. It doesn't cover everything, but it just covers a lot of things, because I think it's important. People need help now as much as I've ever seen. People are losing their minds sometimes because there's so much going on in the world. People are waking up. God, it can't be this bad. Oh, just you wait till you learn the rest of it. It's way worse than you think. But you know, it's to me, it's just about, you know, if in this world now you can stay balanced, I think you're doing amazing, and you should actually pat yourself on the back. Yeah, I'm doing amazing, just staying level, because so many people are losing it. You know, I'm working with psychiatrists, psychologists. We have ways of releasing emotion very quickly and helping them stay balanced so they can work on their, you know, clients. And yeah, it's a lot, but I love it.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of work, but it's important, you know.
Oh yeah, I
Shade
mean,
says this. Go ahead.
I think to me it's an absolute passion. I absolutely love it. You know, so
Yeah, and you got to love it, or you're not going to be able to do it. That's the bottom line. You won't be able to channel those energies. Shade says
yeah,
it's
but
really
Josh,
impressive. Go ahead.
I think also, you know, and one of the things I want to get to the audience is, you know, it's important to find that, like I think you found your burning passion. You love what you do. I love what I do, and it's a reason to get up in the morning, you know, and get out there and help people. And I think that's really important. And some people say, well, I don't know what my gift is. It's the thing that you really don't have to try. You're just natural at it. Like, you know, there's 4-year-olds playing the piano like concert pianist. You know, it's so good. It's looking for your gift. I think it's really important. Sorry,
No. You're right. You're the guest. So Shade Viking says it's really impressive. Really, the ultimate lie that aliens made man, removing God from the equation, is this stamp. Well, I can say this: it doesn't matter. Like I've said this before, that we get bogged down in arguing about the minutia, and so many people want the Genesis story. They fight hard for that to be God, the one true living God that makes us. But a lot of it doesn't make sense. Now, make it make sense. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and I've said this before: it doesn't really matter whether or not it is or not. We can argue that and debate it all day long. Whoever made us was made by God, regardless, because He is the
yeah,
one that created everything in the big scheme of things. So even if we were created by something else, we ourselves can create man. In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I found this out the other day when we started talking, that it was written in 1818. I didn't even realize it was that, you know. So I learned something, but I thought it was a little more recent, but that's an old book. And then you look at how it was like the idea that you could create life. We ourselves create life by having children.
Mhm.
So do all reptiles, mammals, and everything else. But we can actually customize people. We can actually make people from scratch and turn them into whatever we want to turn them into. So people are like, "Oh my gosh, how could that be that God didn't make us? It's not that God made us or He didn't make us. God, all life comes from Him. He is the source. It doesn't matter." And so whenever people get all angry and start wanting to argue and fight about it, I was like, dude, doesn't even matter. That part is really not that important. That is a human physical thing. They feel the need to be close to the supreme being. So humans, people, the priesthood back in the day, they put a label on him, and then they said, "This is who God is, and He looks like us." And and then all of a sudden, He used to talk to us all the time, but then all of a sudden, He quit talking to us. But then Jesus comes and He says, "That's not true. The kingdom of God is found within." So you have to look inward, because each one of us is a living universe, and you have your own culture going on in your body. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And
and
everything's a God here. You know, it's out in nature. Everything's God. You know,
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah,
In my
everything
opinion.
is, in my opinion too. Yeah, I agree 100%. And people also ask the question why you wouldn't want to hurt your body or anything like that. It's pretty practical. Number one, if you were living back in those days, you would not scar your body, hurt your body, because you could get an infection and die. But the ancients took it a step further. They understood that our body, each one of our bodies, is actually a living organ, billions of living organisms that
Mhm.
depend on you to think correctly and basically be your own little mini version of a universe, which is God, you know? And so the stamp and the imprint is there. God imprinted it. And there are people who don't want to hear that, so they don't need to listen. They can go and do whatever it is that they want to do. But that is the truth. And these entities that are after us, there's a reason why they're after us, because we have these individual universes walking around. They represent a ton of energy and control. And the thousands of living cells within your body is very important. And when they co opt your body, like you were talking about the NPCs, they turn them into, like these zombies. And
Absolutely.
they have a hive mind too. Because when these zombie people dream, I've talked to some of these people and you work with them and they're just like, and when you ask them things, they don't remember their dreams. They don't dream
No.
like we do. They don't
No.
process anything because their brain it just goes in and goes out. And they're just like, yeah, I'll do what the price could the computer say. That's the kind of people,
Yeah, I
know.
was just gonna say I've seen plenty of them at the
They
Jack in the
don't
Box.
have they don't have the Jack in the Box drive-through.
Yeah.
They don't have any kind of nothing,
No, it's just nothing there.
Nothing there, man. And
No
I'm telling
thought,
you, they don't
communication.
dream. They're used as an energy like a battery, like a soul battery.
Mhm.
And then, they have this hive mind. So they hook them up to like this ether, whatever, and they can tap into that. So everything they walk around and do is just a recording device. Their brain is literally. And then you see some of these people, they're like, okay, like the women on Instagram, you can see like half of them are just like the brain is just a life support system for their booty.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. And then you got these meathead guys at the gym that are doing the same thing. They're just like, because I go to the gym and I'm always having to sidestep around these dudes that are posing in the mirror. And I'm like, if you try talking to them, they're just like, yeah, man, that's pretty deep, dude.
They don't bring the tripods with the cameras, taking pictures of themselves. Like, dude,
there's nothing. I mean, there is nothing there, dude. These chicks, the dudes, it doesn't matter. Either one, they're both doing it. And then the whole culture is completely skewed. And these people get too far into the cerebral, or they get too far into the spiritual, and they forget that they still have a body and a mind to deal with, or they get too far into their body. And they're very superficial and they don't have a connection to their mind. And when you ask them, they're like, I'm just spiritual. No, you're not. You're not spiritual at all. You're very superficial and you're all about your body. But that's because you have a parasite. And that parasite, which I think is what binds everybody together. And it's worse than just a fungal infection. That is a very key point that you made earlier. It is a nanotechnology. And I've thought that for a long time, that they can actually bind to your DNA, much like a fungus would. It mimics it, but it takes it a step further and it turns you into transhuman. And it is a very artificial mockery of what is actually the real. And then you become that. And I think that the morgellons are the people that were attacked that their mind hasn't gone yet. Mm-hmm. And that is a reaction. This is my opinion. And Christopher, feel free to interject or tell me you don't believe it or you believe it. But this is a theory I have. I think that because the morgellon is something I looked into a long time ago. And I think that when it goes into the body, the people that experience the problems, I think that they're having a reaction and their body's trying to fight it or reject it. But of course it can't. But they're cognizant of it because there are people. And get this, I have interviewed people that have told me all kinds of wacky stuff. One lady told me she lives in Iowa. I'll never forget this. She told me that she was laying in her bed and that wires came out of her arms. And when she looked down, she felt something itching in her arms and it went back into her arms. Both of her sisters have Morgellons disease. Mm-hmm. Now, this woman was just living her life, but then she started having like the one I could describe as like an awakening. She was looking in the mirror because she had something kind of like felt like moving in her eyeball. And when she started rubbing it, some little like black goop thing fell and then it became like a little worm and it went down to the sink. And she was like, what in the hell? So she tells her husband, he tries very hard to convince her that nothing is wrong. Her sisters are having this scratching, the itching, whatever, which she says is Morgellons disease. I'm taking her word on it. But she says they have Morgellons disease. She's like, and I have it terrible now. And I said, no, you had it. This is what I came up with. I told her, I said, I think you always had, her name was Beverly. I said, Beverly, you've always had it. I was like, but your sisters, their body was fighting it. Yours let it go in and take over. And when you would see those hairs or wire looking things coming out of you, it would go back in and hide. This is my hypothesis of it.
Oh, it does. The stuff moves.
It does. Yeah. So what do you think of that? Do you think that that's correct? Like that is what's happening here? And maybe it's a...
Oh, yeah. I've seen it, and since 2019, there's so many people got Morgellons now. Mm-hmm. Because it's in the, oh, yeah. the ingestion mechanism, you know.
Is
And
there no
so-
getting rid of it?
The only way I've found to
Well-
get rid of it, I mean, I've seen Tenpenny, I've worked with Dr. Hildy. I mean, Hildy's way above morgellons. I mean, morgellons, let me just check, when was morgellons developed? It was developed in 2002, perfected in 2002. So it's been going on for 20 years. Hildy was in there at the start. She's gone to DARPA. She's seen the stuff being actually grown. And but it moved on. Now it's got an interdimensional metallic structure. You know, it's got the black goo in it, as you know, the consciousness. And when it grows through the skin, think about this. You know, how do you detox it? Because it's part of your body. You can't detox part of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way is, and this is a Melchizedek thing, and Melchizedek beings created the Akashic records, if you know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically the records of timeline. The reason why they did that is because when you go back in time, they didn't want the time-space continuum. When you learn how to produce a time machine, whatever, you go back in time, they didn't want people altering the time-space because it'll just destroy everything. It'll destroy the very fabric of the universe. So what they did is they created the Akashic records where it's a record of your timeline. So say, you know, you wanted to go back in time. So you go back in time on your timeline. You can go actually on your timeline, not other person's, just yours, because it's just a record. And you can observe what's happened. So say you went to 1936, you saw Hitler, you thought, well, if we took him out, you know, everything would change. You can't, because you can't do anything because you're locked on your timeline in the past, but you can't alter other people's timeline because their time has already happened. But going forward, and it took me a long time to perfect this, I've been doing it for 4 years. So what I was looking for is a way of locking these particles, because they're interdimensional, they can switch dimensions, locking them on a timeline and stripping them out of the body. So what we do is we split, when we do the thing, power up the energy, split your timeline in two. So we put you on a path of divine alignment, complete wellness, where all the particles and all the stealth pathogens and whatever in your body, radiation also, is eradicated on that timeline. On the other timeline, what we do is we separate out all the particles, all the stealth pathogens, everything else, you know, herpes, cerebellar zoster, whatever you got, and lock it on a timeline. So as time goes on, it starts to separate out the body at a rate that you can actually safely discharge it without bleeding out. You see what I mean? So it's separated out the body because you're on a divine timeline now. And once we get to about 15 weeks of it, your vibration's high enough to then invoke a DNA change. So they go in, Melchizedek beings come down through the portal, go in, repair all the chromosomes, connect all these together, reset the DNA of that first cell in the sacral point back to the blueprint. And then they do it on cells around it. That takes about 15, 12, 14, 16 weeks. And once it's done, you know, your DNA is reset, you've got all your light body, it's reset back to the Akashic record blueprint, and all the stuff is stripping out your body, you know. So when we do this, a ton of stuff comes out of people's bodies. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so much of it is parasitic, and then they stack on top of one another, and then they interact with one another and become something completely, you know, different.
Oh yeah, they create structures. They do horrible things. You know, it's evil. It's evil stuff. You know, it really is.
When think about this too. Whenever we were talking earlier about how these beings brought their black goo here, that's very important. That's key because you know, and we haven't here at PRT, we haven't even gotten to that yet, where we were going to start talking about the alien version of it, because there are still people that don't believe these are alien. But Anthony has said that many times that anybody not from here is alien. But even we are seeded. We're not. We're alien.
Mm-hmm.
But we have now spiritually bonded with this planet. We've physically bonded with this planet. Now, you have a being from another place, and they are physically and spiritually way, way, way more advanced than we are. And they have bonded with that planet on many different levels to the point where it is a biological living thing. We know that. And if you accept that, which is the truth, then you honestly, you know, how do we put seeds into dirt, and that dirt makes them grow things? Have you ever thought about that? People take soil Now, my great grandfather, he died right before I was born, so I don't remember this, but he was a farmer, and he said he could smell a soil, and he could tell you what the crop everything what it was going to be like just by smelling it. This is what they said.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And the old timers were so in tune with the land that he could walk on that black land with his bare feet, and he could tell you how good the harvest was going to be, what kind of crop growth you were going to get out of it. And he said that that soil had a smell to it, and it had a certain tone, and it was the black land that we had that made everything grow so well. But he took it a step further. He wanted a certain type of black land, and he could grow more on less acreage. He was really good at this. And so he was an expert farmer. Now, taking that into account, you have this thing that used to be called the Farmer's Almanac, and these farmers would write this book a year or two in advance, and it was uncannily accurate.
Oh, I was always amazed at how
Accurate it was.
How can that
well,
work?
because those people are so in tune with their own soil, they're so in tune with the cycles that that's how they did it, you know. And so I believe that we have lost that. And one of the things you were saying, Christopher, earlier was how they are spraying us with everything under the sun and some that's not, you know, that it is destroying our ability to think cognitively, to make good decisions. Like earlier, we both kind of just blinked out. It was weird. It was like we got hit with something, you know. And it seemed like we were kind of just like, oh, what were you talking about? I don't know. I can't remember. You know, it was like this kind of a glitch there, right? Well, that happens, and it happens more and more. And you're going to see these generations coming up that don't have any memory, and they don't even know what they had for breakfast, much less how to predict the weather a year in advance, which is something that used to be very commonplace. They used to have these farmers' almanacs everywhere. England had its own version of it. Everybody had one of these. And it was just like, why in the heck do we not do this anymore? Because we've lost that ability. And even the ones that once had it are so bombarded with 5G, with graphene, with glyphosate, with all of these other horrible things. Now, mercury, it's become so commonplace that we are just lost. We're absolutely lost. And so yeah, there's billions of people, but then now the birth rate's going to just drop. That is absolutely them doing this. They are doing this. And I'm telling you, I'm not talking like Tolstoy says, they who say they don't know who they are. No, I know exactly who they are. They're literally reptilian overlords. And when you talk about people think you're crazy. But you know, David Icke was running around screaming this, and then more recently, Alex Jones and a lot of other people have come out and started just saying they're vampires. Well, they are, but there's a faction of them that exclusively do drink blood, and that is a weird thing. But the kings and queens have always done that, and they've eaten people. But they can eat you, and then they can absorb your DNA. That's the thing, and you become a part of them. They're like basically eating worlds, because every body that's walking around on the earth is a world, and they're consuming it. So on a larger scale, they come from their world to consume our world. But it's not just like that. Now, if you were one of these beings that existed out of space and time, which they do, it's like a blink of an eye, and the earth just goes, and there's nothing left. But we're actually here in real time as it's happening, and it's like the sandwich is being molded and consumed. But they can observe it like it's instantaneous. But someone has to go into the quantum verse and do it and make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So if you were to I did this an experiment when I was in high school. Actually, I was in middle school. I was like in 7th grade. But I had to do an experiment, and it was about mold, and it really fascinated me how fungus worked. So I took all these different breads and all these different bananas and fruit and stuff, and I molded them, and I observed it, and it was real tedious. I had to take a picture every day with a camera. Now we would just have these it'd be easy, man. It's really easy. And so on my science project, and I got a B+, so I guess I did okay. But like I took still images, hundreds of each one, just like, and my mom was like, this is a very expensive, you know, because of the camera, you know, it was like Kodak, you know.
Yeah.
So I had all these photos. Yeah. And so I brought out all these poster boards. And so the guy that was running the science fair said, okay, look, you got like 30 of these. We have room. We got you do like 3 different. So I chose one fruit, and I chose one bread, and I chose something else like dog food or something. And so I put the pictures up there, and it was like each one of them had like, 30, 40 pictures or whatever, because it was a month-long project, right? So when I finished doing the project, I figured out like how the mold worked. It's like that is what's happening to our planet, literally. Like it is being molded and consumed by these energy vampires. And when you look at it under, if you were to look at it under a microscope, it would just look like it's being dissolved in acid, right? But that's not what we're actually experiencing it over millennia, because time to us is way different, just like time to us is different to an ant. Like a snail or an ant to walk across this parking lot, that's an all-day event. For us, we do it in a matter of minutes. That's the difference in time between us and a smaller creature. We are literally on a quantum level to these beings, so that when these beings are coming in and out of our reality, they're shrinking down into our reality. I'm not even joking. And that's why the portals you were talking about. Now, I would normally say it's a very bad idea to open up a portal because you don't know what's going to come through. But if you are doing something and you're able, and I'm not saying you can or can't because I don't know, but if you're able to channel that and bring that through, it's very specific. You have the right frequencies, right? That will block out anything. Yeah, because it's like a radio. You're only tuning into that one frequency.
Oh yeah, you've got to get the right dimension, the right, open the right portal.
Exactly.
I've actually had portals. I remember going to a place called Stardust Ranch, if you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
John Edmonds.
Yeah. So what happened?
He's kind of passed now, bless him. But anyway, a number of years back, he phoned me up and said, "Look, I've got problems. Greys are opening portals. They're coming down." And he had a horse sanctuary, and you find one of his horses like completely dismembered, half-eaten, whatever. And he was really upset about it. So I spent the weekend there, and I worked out where the portal was, started to get to the right frequency. And then it took me about a day, and bang, it opened. But he always said it opened on the ground. But anyway, it opened about 300 feet up, and you could see it. There's things coming out of it, beings, whatever. And so at least I managed to open it. I said, okay, we're going to shut it down. So I figured out how to shut it down. Meanwhile, I've got, in quotes, watchers, which are 3 Arcturian craft that if I get into trouble, they always actually turn up. So they turned up. So about half a mile away, there was these 3 craft going 3 to 1, 3 to 1. Within 5 minutes, of course, the military helicopters are out there trying to circle and creating a wide berth. Wonder what the heck they're doing here, and I was talking to them with telepathy, and I was saying, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're here to make sure you don't do stupid stuff, okay. Anyway, I spent about 45 minutes and shut it down, and bang, it was gone. So were the Arcturian craft. And after that, it stopped, and he was blown away by it, bless him. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. But I think, people don't realize how powerful they are. And, Josh, you were saying that we have the ability to create actually anything you want. I think it's just that, with all these these sort of things, cell phones and stuff to distract us, like, gaming, porn is a massive thing. I'm finding a lot more people addicted to that than anything. And I'm kind of thinking, oh my God, it's diluting people's love. It's diluting the human part of us. It's making us really desensitized almost completely. And it's so sad,
Well, it preys on a natural instinct. Anything that and this is one thing that they do. One of the things that they do, and what you just said, Chris, by the way, I got to say, you're one of my top 5 at this point of guests. I got to say that, man, because...
you mean I didn't make number 1? Oh, no.
Because I have a lot of good friends, and I don't want any. I'm not going to say who the other ones are, because if I do, then the other ones will feel left out, so I can't say it. But Christopher,
no, thanks,
definitely on the level, dude, and I'm enjoying this conversation. I usually enjoy talking to my guests anyway. I really don't have anybody that I'm like, I didn't, but you're actually very on the level, and this is something that needs to be said. Smoky Cave says, Macklin, go into detail about these watchers. Now, before you do that, I have a question for you. What you were talking about, the pornography and the different things that people are addicted to, and I don't know exactly what you think, of this, but I think the Archons have set that in motion from jump, because the first thing they did when we were very primitive what they needed to enslave us. And so the best way to enslave someone is to make them enslave themselves. If you train a dog well enough, and I used to train dogs, and I actually trained them for a particular police department. And I've been on both sides. I started out years ago as not really a good guy, and my polarity switched, because you can get really high and powerful, and be not a good guy and not realize that you're actually about to flip polarity. And then when you do, you're like, oh, you're still really powerful spiritually, but you're a good guy. And then you realize, like, once you flip those polarities, though, you realize real quick that you are outnumbered big time. Like, you are like way outnumbered. Okay, bad to good. The bad outnumber us 3-1 right now. I can tell you that. Because only a quarter of the planet is even on the level. But when you look at this like what you were saying, so they attack the base, that the amygdala, the basic instinct is to have sex, to replicate.
Reptilian brain.
The reptilian brain, yes. And they feed on that, and then you eat, right? So basically food and water, and then sex, and then shelter, being safe with security. So they offer you those things. Now, if you train a dog powerful enough, because I used to train Malinois, I trained English Mastiffs, I trained Rottweilers, I trained Dobermans, German Shepherds. They're all different, but there are certain breeds like that are more passive, not because they're all aggressive, but they're more passive in their training. Like a German Shepherd is going to make it, do it, because it already knows what you want, but it's going to make you do it. You know what I mean? Like because they don't want to be. German Shepherds will not deal with a stupid person. I'm telling you, it will never work when you have a German Shepherd. If that person is not a high IQ person, that German Shepherd will be pooping, peeing, and chewing on your couch until the day it dies. I promise you. But if you're smart and you take control, then yeah. Now, a Mastiff, a little bit of a different temperament, and what this has to do, I'll tell you, they will conform a lot more readily, even to a person who's not as smart. They'll just be like, cool, whatever, as long as they get to do what they want to do. Now, if you don't neuter them, they're one of the most highly just agitated dogs when it comes to wanting to breed, and they will go and whatever, because they're just full of testosterone. But if you train them correctly, that dog will look at an invisible barrier that you set up for it, and it'll act like it's going to die if it goes across it. So it self-controls, in certain breeds, Mastiffs in particular, Rottweilers. Those two breeds. Now, a Doberman or a German Shepherd, you're going to be in trouble, because they already know they're just going to take their paw and go, oh, look, I didn't disintegrate. You know what? I'm going to take the other paw and do it. Are you going to stop me? No? Okay, then I'm going to do what I'm going to do. A Mastiff will be like, I want to please you. You give me food and you let me have procreation with these other, dogs or whatever. I'm happy. I'm just going to sit here. So what they did was literally chose our ancestors to breed that would go after those base things, those elements. And so I really believe it was an instituted breeding program going way back beyond time that we can even remember. And I think that that's what they did. The fallen, the archons, the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, they instituted a breeding program. Then when the reptoids came, and they saw the apparatus was already in place, they do what they do. They try to just take it, latch onto it, and blood drink it, suck it, whatever, dry. And then they used what was already in place, but they made it more evil because they added their black goo to it. And I think that's what has happened. I'm not saying this is 100%, but I do believe this is, in a nutshell, kind of what we're dealing with. And so I do think that people like you and what you have going on, trying to cleanse people, not just physically from the parasitic stain on us, but the mental and the spiritual, because you need all three. You can take the ivermectin and benzol, whatever it's called, benzol, whatever. You can take all of that. You can take the blue methylene or whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. If you're not getting spiritually cleansed, you're not getting physically cleansed and mentally cleansed, because these vampires that we were talking about on the show, they go into this like water type stuff, and it's like an evil baptism, and it gets rid of the other parasites that could cling to them, even anything that's good, right? Even stardust, they don't want it on them. So they keep that parasite. He stays in control. He's like, this is mine, and all these other beings need to be destroyed.
So it's like a filter.
It is. It's all it is. But for us, going through what Christopher's talking about, I'm telling you, man, you have to be cleansed of all three, because the parasite will take hold. And then and if you let your guard down, it'll keep doing it. And addictions to food, sex, and sleeping too, like people being really lazy, very lethargic. Animals do that. They just want to lay around and just be left alone, and they want security and shelter. And if you can offer those 5 things, security, shelter, laziness, basically sex when they want it, and food and water, those 5 things, literally, that's all they need. You don't even need stimulation so much. But now you're so overstimulated that it's almost like you get caught up in a world within a world within a world.
Mhm.
You ever played a video game and then there's another game in the video game?
Yeah.
And then you're like over there playing cards on Fable.
Yeah, and
or
you're like, why am I
Skyrim?
spending 2 hours playing blackjack?
You're like, what am I
within
doing?
I'm playing this game within this game that, like, I would never just sit here and just play a blackjack game by itself. But it's
Exactly.
because it's a game within a game. It's just, there's something alluring about just like just take me on a ride mentally. I don't have to think. Just
You don't
just
have to do anything.
Put my brain on rails and give me a rest. You know.
Well, that game Fantasy Life.
Yeah.
You know, or Skyrim. And then you go into these like casinos, like Red Dead Redemption or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're playing cards and you're just like, I notice, I look at the clock and I'm like, I've been playing cards in this saloon for 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's like not even in a real casino.
And I'm excited about winning pretend money.
Pretend money. Yeah. You're
pixels.
totally happy for that. And it's like, you're sitting there like, I've got the retardation, you know, because they have conditioned us that way. But you can breed dogs. And I want to breed Rottweilers with Mastiffs. I've done it before. And so I'm probably going to do it again. But I just thought, you know, and they make great dogs. You get really good. I had good luck with them. And one of my friends used to do it, and they make really good animals. But, you know, they instituted a breeding program. And of course, they did it over and over and over again. And even the leaders, the rulers, the Romans did it. They turned the Iberian Peninsula into all hybrids of Roman and Iberian Celtic stock. And they never had a problem with Spain ever again, because it was Romanized and conquered. And the Iberian Celts, they weren't even the Iberian Celts anymore. They're like, yeah, my dad's a Roman. So there was no more problem. All the way up to Trier in Germany, which is Austria, the border was secured because guess what? Marcus Aurelius was like, hey, we need to breed with the Germans. So they took the Germans and the Romans. They brought a bunch of women, and they took a bunch of soldiers, and they made them all interbreed. And I'm talking on a massive scale, to where if you look at the Austrians now, you can see it. You can see it. They have that Nordic look, but it's also tempered with like the Spanish, not Spanish, like Hispaniolan, I guess, though, blood. And you see it, that blood, it looks very, you know, Roman or romantic mixed with like, you know, Nordic. And that's what it is. And so when you interbreed these animals, which is what we were to these beings, you get what they want, which is the complacency, the easily distraction, whatever. Then it starts to kind of breed itself back out, because it's not a natural thing. It's a bottleneck. So it starts to untwist and people start to come out of it. So what they got to do now, they're like, okay, we got to keep abducting them and interbreeding and, you know, putting these people back into circulation, making more NPCs. But we could also help ourselves out by just giving them these shots. And it dumps all kinds of crap into your body. It pollutes it. And then you become what they want you to become, which is more complacent, more forgetful, more not mindful, not careful. What do you think, Macklin? Do you think this is the case? I mean, is this what's happening to us?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's making people really sick, you know. I mean, they're getting nylon in the arteries, nylon 36, 33. They're getting myocarditis. It's not myocarditis. It's nano growing through the heart. You know, strokes. You know, from some of the nano. So many different things. It's just unbelievable. I mean, there's a massive list. You know, if you have a look. And I'm seeing it in clients, you know, when they've taken it after about, I would say about, you know, a year or two, it's growing through the body, and eventually you end up in trouble, you know. So yeah, it's a real problem at the moment.
Yeah, and so when these people like you're bound to the earth, you're connected to the earth, and this other species comes along and they bring their black goo. They've had millennia more time with what they know how to manifest it, harvest it, and collect it. And so when their black goo hits you, it supersedes everything because you aren't complete. You haven't had as a millennia to bind with the earth like these people have, and they've done it on a spiritual level. So they know the repercussions and they know what's happening spiritually. We don't. We really do not, because they come out of the spirit world into a flesh body. We don't do that. It's so much different for us coming out of our flesh body, going into the spiritual. And so you don't see, you don't have that ability to see what they see, because when you go back into your body, guess what? Your three-dimensional brain can't process what the heck the spirit is giving it. So there's a problem there because the processor is not connecting with the hard drive or whatever. Is that right?
Probably the motherboard.
The motherboard. Yeah, there you go. So it's not connecting. It's like, so you're disconnected, but they can see everything. They're from that higher dimension. It's not real high. They're still lower level entities, but they're higher than you. You're in this dense whatever, which is to me the matrix. It's really a trap. And I think that we're kind of like bound here, and in a way that you're not even aware. Like you're participating in this matrix. Everything you do, whether you wake up and make eggs and toast in the morning, you comb your hair a certain way, you're agreeing that this is real, right? And by that agreement, you're basically giving the matrix the contract saying, yeah, I agree that this is what's happening. But like I said, it's something that was put in place by these buttholes a long time ago, and we really didn't agree to it. But then they'll say, well, yes, you did, because 1,000 lifetimes ago you agreed to it. Well, if you were holding me hostage, I probably didn't have a choice. Or if you tricked me to circumvent like certain karmic laws, you know what I mean? Which are just bound by energy. So they manipulate energy. And what you said about the Akashic records, that's very important, because that is the record. That is the key. Edgar Cayce talks about it. It's something that a lot of psychics and remote viewers have talked about. And whatever you do is recorded. Everything is there. You can't deny it and say this didn't happen, because you can go back and look at it. And then you have to go, okay, yeah, I did this. And you have to feel the pain. Like you were really sorry for what you did, which I think a lot of these NPCs are sociopaths. They don't have that ability. And I tell people, and they get really upset.
No, they don't. Not at all.
They don't. They're sociopaths. And when I tell them, they said they can't, they will not go to Christ. And they're like, well, everybody can. No, they can't, because those people are born that way. They cannot, because they don't have empathy.
Like flesh automation.
Yeah, so there's no redemption there. You're wasting your time. And those people will come into the group and they will act like they're part of the flock, but they're not. They're not necessarily the wolves, because they don't attack with a ravenous whatever. What they do is they just infect other people with their retardation. You know what I mean? And that's just, it's horrible, and you see it going on. So people are asking how to get rid of this. Christopher, what is your plan to get rid of the whatever, that's going on with us? Like how do you rid yourself of the parasites physically, mentally, spiritually? What do you do? What is your plan?
Well, I have a portal, and basically, I mean, I would say 99.9% of people who come for healing have an attachment to a parasite of some sort, whether it's Draconian, Luciferian, Snake Being, Archon, what else is there? Anunnaki. They've got some sort of parasites, and I just put portals around. The first thing I ever do is remote view them, and of course they're not in the room, they're elsewhere, on the phone or something, and see what parasite they've got attached to them, remove it. When you first remove it, people think, oh my god, I feel so much better, because these parasites, like Draconian and Anarchy, they sit in the abdomen, bloat the abdomen, paralyze lower intestine, so your intestine's not working, tap in the lower back, damage the L4-L5 disc, send you negative thoughts, like if you go to work, oh god. It's always a you thought. They're not allowed under universal law, and that's, look at the keys of Enoch. They're not allowed to say I. They have to say you. So they're sending you thought like you are useless. The boss doesn't like you. No one likes you at work, and you get all these negative thoughts, and people get overwhelmed by them. They get depressed because they think it's I thoughts, like, yeah, I'm no good, and boss doesn't like me, and just about to get fired. And as soon as you remove them, it's gone. Now, we also have a set of prayers as well. So once we get rid of the parasites, if you've got a lot of emotion, think about this. I mean, the whole point about, Christ consciousness, to me, it's Christ consciousness. It's getting your vibration up to that Christed level. We all have the ability. So as you release emotion, of course, your vibration's going up. When your vibration gets higher than these entities, they can't get near you, so they leave you alone. But in the meantime, if your vibration's not there, they can reattach to you. And one of the key things about healing is we have a prayer. I don't like the word prayer. I like the word map of intent, because it's more. And we have a map of intent to basically put 27 esoteric Merkaba fields around yourself to protect you from any negative entities, fractals, manipulation, and transmissional frequencies that are not for your highest good through all space, time, in every dimension. So, have a look at the website. There's loads of tools. And I think, if you use some of these prayers and some of these instruments, or even if you want to get on, the general healing. I mean, the next general healing is actually tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. It's for an hour. If you want to sign up, it's by donation. If you have no money, please sign up. That's why we do it, because I want to help as many people as possible. And another thing is this, that, one of the biggest things I've heard is, well, how do we go against the cabal and the deep state and all these people? We don't have the money. You don't need money, You need the power of, in quotes, God. I mean, I define God as God, goddess, prime creator of all it is. You need that power. If you have that power, you can do anything. And so what we do is every 120 days, we do a God ceremony. It's kind of a ritual because it's reinstated every day. And what we do is we call out all the big things. It's quite complex, but basically the fundamentals of it is what we're doing is calling out big tech, big pharma, calling out all the Illuminati, Rothschild, Rockefellers, all the institutions like Gates and Foundation, Clinton Foundation, all these things, in the military-industrial complex, CIA, FBI, whatever, that are going against people, and we're bringing them all before God for justice and release them to God with unconditional love and forgiveness. So, it's a very powerful exercise. So the next one's actually on the 10th of May. So if anyone wants to join, which is actually, a week tomorrow. So
how do you join it? How do the people join it?
All you have to do is go to the website and just click on it. It's free to join. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hour exercise. And, the more people we have, the more powerful it is. And I think it really helps. So, anyone who wants to join, if you want the power to change this planet, let's use the God realm to do it. We don't have the money. I mean, I don't have the billions of dollars to try and do anything with anybody. We're not in politics. I'm not in religion. I do believe in God, one God, many paths. And, someone stated around Jesus anyway. I love Jesus' teachings, and I actually abide my life by them. I don't judge people. I help as many people as possible, etc. To me, his teachings are so simple. And, so yeah, I think this ceremony is really powerful. The most we ever had is 4,000 people. But It's come down. Last time we had about 220. It just depends. So, anyone wants to join, it's for free next Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Time. And we'd love your help because, we're all in this together. So
yeah. Somebody had asked you the question about the Watchers. Now, I mean, everybody talks about it, and we've talked about it. And some believe that they are the same as, and I've told people this before, they're not. There's Watchers, Archons, there's Nephilim, all are a little bit different, and then Fallen, and then there's all these different, everything in between in the Anunnaki. And some people believe that they are all the same, okay? But what is your thought? What is your opinion on the Watchers in particular?
I may be misquoting. I mean, you're not talking about the Watchers and fallen angels and things like this, and they sent all the angelic to, wipe them out and all this sort of thing. Well, that never happened. And I'll tell you why, because one of the biggest keys of this universe is free will.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got an angelic being in a different dimension or whatever, like take for example Archangel Michael, ancient Palladium, he doesn't have the permission to come down here unless someone says, "Hey, come down." Nor even does Prime Creator, who created the thing, because he put his own rules in. So they all have to abide by the rules. Yeah. So anyway, so I just thought I'd get that. The Watchers, I call them the Watchers. They're not the same as the Enoch Watchers, the fallen angels. Then they're not all fallen. These guys, I call them the Watchers because there's three Arcturian craft, and they work very closely with Melchizedek beings, and they actually have your back. You know, if something happens to you or you get into trouble, they'll take you on their ship and, you know, take you off. And, you know, they've tried 289 times, and these guys have been involved. They've encouraged me. Even when I was in Delhi, I went to India, and I went to the Cloud Gangs. I don't know why I went there because, anyway, I was grossly mistaken about what was there. We all know who was there, but CIA operative. But anyway, when I was coming back, I went to the northern camp in Delhi. Got this massive message like, "You need to change your ticket. Delay it 3 days." Why? You need to change your ticket. Delay it for 3 days. Why? Just change your ticket. Okay, I'll do it. So I did it, and you know, at the time I had no money. You know, I was really struggling for money, so I had to pay my brother, get £70, change the ticket for 3 days. On the day that I was meant to fly, the aircraft never took on. It was Delhi. It went to the end of the runway and blew up and killed everyone on board. I thought, oh, well, that's why you said change your ticket, you know, and I blessed everyone on board. But, you know, these things have happened, you know, and like I say, they try and, if you really know stuff and you're going to do something like the Pyramid Project, they know about the Pyramid Project. It's written in the tablets, actually in the Ozarks, for the Mormons. So they know about this. That's why a lot of Mormons are actually moving over here, because they know something's going to happen. They just don't know who's doing it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Like okay, and so when you guys do the session, whatever it is, I'd like to check it out just so I can maybe you know, like kind of get a feel for what you guys are about.
Yeah,
because I mean, and then I can
Josh, come on tomorrow, you know. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I got a meeting tomorrow at 12:30, so maybe I could. Is it from like 11 to 12? 11 a.m. to 12?
Yeah, Central Time.
Central time?
Yeah, 11 a.m. to 12 Central Time.
Maybe we should check it out, and then I'll tell people. I'll tell people, go check it out. Or I'll be like, dude, this is complete wacko. This guy is complete whack, dude. Do not go. It's the devil. Christopher's looking at me like, what the freaking heck? He's like, okay.
Josh, the proof the pudding's in the eating, you know, or in the drying, you know, if you feel, wow, yeah, you know, I mean, I've not had anybody, you know, who's not like, wow, you know, and I've been on a lot of podcasts, and they try it out, and yeah, very happy with the healings. You know, it's pretty powerful stuff, but it's quantum, it's interdimensional. It's not, you know, it's not energy from here. You know, it's not energy from this third dimensional world. It's a lot more powerful. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, somebody just said something about British accent equals IQ plus 10 IQ.
Yeah, plus 10% IQ.
So we're going to talk like this from now on. So we have a show. It's called PRT. Join us in the real reality. And maybe, and I can be smarter and people will listen, because when you talk, you know, like I have an accent, and it's actually a Texas Southern accent. It's kind of like this. This is how we talk down here. So if I just abandon how I learned to talk, I would sound kind of like this. That's just how, because it's kind of a lazy kind of, you know, and I've, you know, the way that we just kind of, you know, whatever, produce it. You want to, y'all,
Yeah.
and it's really how we talk.
Yeah.
So my dad told me, he was like, if you're going to go and be out there in the world, he's like, no offense to any of your cousins or your aunt or whatever, but he's like, you need to talk like I do. And I was like, why, Dad? And, you know, and he's like, because people will respect you more. And we, you know, so you already have the respect of the people who don't talk like that, but the people who are talking like this, they're going to be like, well, why are you sounding like you don't know how to do anything but hammer fence posts into the ground? And it is nothing against people that do that, because I know how to do labor, and I did it for years, and I shoveled horse crap. And my first job was working on a ranch, and, first job in town was working at a barbecue joint. So it was like, I've seen both ends of it. And I lived on a sort of a farm ranch hybrid, and grew up, running around out in the country. And for fun, we would shoot copperheads. I mean, we would literally, one friend would throw up a log, get it off the ground, and we'd shoot a copperhead. And we tried to see who could kill the most, because they were all over the place out there. And so, and even rattlesnakes too, they weren't as common over there. It was mostly copperheads. And then to the east, there were more rattles. But whenever, I was growing up, I grew up like in this sort of, farm community, whatever. I didn't even wear shoes half the summer, man. Like, it was like I'd start taking them off in June and running around, unless I was going out there looking for snakes, and then I'd wear my boots. And so I just kind of like grew up like this at 15 years old. And they're like, you're moving to the city, and it's the barrio, and you get a crash course real quick, and, just gangster crap, gang banging basically. And later on, I graduated from gang banging to being a real, thug, gangster, whatever. So I came full circle, and I changed my life. Like I said, I flipped polarities, and I never looked back. And I am trying to fight the good fight, and I'm trying to do what I believe is correct. And that's what this show is. And that's why, guests like you are important to bring on, periodically, and have somebody to talk about this, because you have been here tonight. We didn't even talk before this. And you're validating a lot of what I have thought and what I have said on the show. I've said all of this.
All these light bulbs have been going off.
Yeah. And every time he says something, I'm going like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, and it's interesting that about the Arcturians, because, sometimes you'll talk to people, unless you're at a UFO conference, people just look at you like they have no clue what you're talking about. They have no idea what that is. They don't know what a blue is, or a tall white, or they don't know the different species. And like, I've even kind of nerded out and learned the different craft, because I feel like you have to know what's going on, and you have to know the different players. And one of the most important things I think that people should take away from this is that it isn't all one thing. You were saying that yesterday, Anthony. You want to explain that and see what Christopher thinks of that?
That what is an all one thing?
About the evil that plagues us.
Yeah. Well, I was saying like that. It's not as like simple and organized as people want to believe. Like, I mean, especially like kind of this is common, kind of a common Christian mindset, like that. That like Satan's minions are like just one organized army that function as a unit, and it's like, no, actually, that's not the nature of evil. That's not the nature of iniquity, because that requires a high degree of loyalty and organization that is just not there. We're getting attacked from like different entities. From different sources, and they all have their own agenda, and it's like we're just kind of caught up in the middle between these warring factions, and just because one entity might want to keep us alive or defend us from another one, that doesn't necessarily mean that's our friend. This, I think this whole the enemy of my enemy is my friend is kind of a short-sighted, simplistic way of looking at things, especially when it comes to spiritual warfare. If we compare ourselves to like cattle, right? Like a farmer wants to give his cattle a decent life. That's his job, but ultimately it's to fatten them up for the slaughter. Ultimately, he's going to keep those cattle within a pen, like on his ranch, so it's not as simple as like Satan is the be all end all of evil, and there's this army of demons plaguing us. There's a lot of different things at play here, and it requires a lot of knowledge, which thank God in heaven for people like yourself, Chris, for people like my uncle, who have made it their life's mission to acquire and share that knowledge. because people need to be armed against this thing, against these different things. How can you defend yourself against something that you don't even understand?
That's the thing. It's interesting. And so I remember somebody asking, I said, why doesn't God just remove all this satanic entities? And to me, in quotes, Satan is I think all the beings have got together. I mean, I think in Jesus' time, I think it was more Luciferian because they were pretty prominent. Yes, the other ones are around, but then you got the Greys coming in, recently, a few hundred years ago. But they've all got together, so Satan, in quotes, is like, to me, is the dark side, like the Greys, the Anunnaki, Draconians, Archons. Then you got snake beings, you got a ton of them.
Yeah, the Nagas.
But what's the difference between, so someone asked me, well, why doesn't God get rid of them? And, someone just pointed in the free will is absolutely right.
It's free will.
The thing is, these things come down here and, even Prime Creator, angelic beings like the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lemurian, Atlanteans, Andromedans, Lyrans, all these good guys, the benevolent ones who are helping us, can't interfere without having permission to come down here. So that's
There's
why
a legality in place.
Exactly. So what they've done is, to get over free will, they've seeded the starseeds, and there's probably about 1% of the planet, maybe less, who are starseed people. And of course, they know who they are. They attack you relentlessly. But we're down here to say, hey guys, we need help and we need it right now. So come down and get some things done. And that's what's happened, I think. But I think Satan is a very large word. Minions, I think, is just people who are following Satan's teachings, like the Anunnaki and deep state, industrial complex of the military and, the Rothschild, Rockefeller, all these deep bankers, all those sort of guys. And I think they're the minions. They're actually operating the satanic instruments, throughout the world. And, gosh, they've done a crazy job, I mean, there's so much separation in the world now with families, with, sexuality, with everything, so many divorces, it's sad to see when you look outside, you think, wow, I don't recognize this world anymore. It's like George Carlin said, he said, the planet needs help. The planet needs help. I'm not putting the F words in, but he said, it's not the planet that needs help. It's the people on it. And then he said, she could spit us off like a bad dose of fleas. I love the way he said fleas. And it's true,
Well, in the end, that's what's going, that's what, not Shiva, what is it? Kali. It is supposedly that Oppenheimer said, I've become death, the destroyer of worlds. And that, in the Vedas, it talks about it in the end of the Kali Yuga, it's going to shake us off like fleas from a dog. Like it says that, the Hindu texts say that. Anytime I quote Muslim, Hindu, or even certain types of Christianity or anything, people get all, butthurt, whatever. But when I tell people, I said, look, dude, it's all relevant. It doesn't mean that everything in there is true, but there are some very true statements. Touching on the, go ahead.
I think every religion has been hijacked to a point. And yes, there are good things in the Bible, and there's stuff that I just don't agree with at all. And, you have to use your discernment. But, I think Jesus' teachings, what he said, the main teachings, I agree with. Buddha's teachings, same type of stuff, just put in a different way of vibration. It's Christ consciousness. I think it's all the same, So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, touching on what you said about the military industrial complex, I want to make sure people understand this. There are people who say that it was created by Dwight D. Eisenhower. That is not, that in my opinion is false. It was in place long before him. And like I said, Wilson was the one that originally signed the agreements in blood. If you want to, that's symbolic. I don't know if he really did that, but he's the one that sold us out. Okay. Originally. Now, Eisenhower and the other jerks that were working with him, they didn't do anything, didn't do us any favors. And of course, like I said, communism being their favorite form of government, they allowed the Iron Curtain to take hold. And then it became a struggle between, I would say 6, but maybe 4 really. There's always like these coalitions, but there's some that do most of the heavy lifting. There was like 6 different entity factions that kind of helped the West, and then there was like just four, that were the main culprits behind doing what they did in the East. Now, those being, like the reptilians, the grays, you have these, like, those two species, and then you had the mantis. And then you had this other being, which I don't even know if you would classify it. It's like a being that's made, get this, and it sounds like the Jinn. They're like this formless mass that can take the form of whatever level they're on, 1 through 5. They can't go beyond the 5th density, and they look like smoke. Now, the smoke, though, becomes a form. Like, they can take a form, and it's almost like a thought form, but it's really weird because they feed on whatever our thoughts are, and they take over other hives. It's almost like a wasp type creature, and it's talked about, but it's like what people would refer to as the other. And it's actually able to parasitize some of the other alien entities, so they kind of keep it at arm's length, but they've gotten a lot of information from this thing. And what I believe this thing is, and this is going to sound completely bonkers, and if you think I'm crazy, Christopher, feel free to say it, but I think what it is a mass, a collective of the different worlds that they've munched on, the black goo, running through like 1,500 different star systems of black goo. And I think
so you can imagine the consciousness is all over the place, isn't it? Of it. Yeah, it's fractured consciousness, I think.
Yeah,
sure.
But
like the Greys, I mean, they destroyed their planet. There was so much anger, and there's wars in the Orion's belt where Reticular is, and then they bring their black goo with all this consciousness, fractured consciousness down here, and of course it affects our planet. I think that's why there's a lot of problems as well, because the consciousness of the planet. I mean, I've had people say, everyone's waking up in droves. We're up to 60 or 70%. I'm looking outside.
Don't see that.
Are you on the same planet? There's not anywhere near that many people woken up.
No way.
We have to get a collective of 8.7%. There's about 2.6%. I'm talking about properly awake, in a proper consciousness, right up there. So I'm looking. I mean, it's always darkest before the dawn, of course, and it feels darkest now. And just to let people know, I mean, I do a lot of healing. I also monitor the collective energy and everything else. Look at human. I look at everything, because when you're healing people, if they're feeling like I call not this Monday just gone, but the Monday before, I called it Despair Monday, because the energy was like despairing. Wow, I can feel it, and people were feeling it. And that was Easter Monday. Of course, we know what happened then. So there was a shift in energy that was really despairing. I thought, wow, and people were phoning, I'm really feeling depressed, and people were losing it that day, and it lightened up on Wednesday, which is great. But again, we do have a map of intent to remove that energy. You can remove it yourself. Have a look at the website. All the prayers, I like the word maps of intent. There's stuff to help you. Like, you send it back to God to be transmuted and dispersed in any other way God knows how. So, I just think it's important that I think we've got to do a lot more spiritual instruments, I would call it, like prayers or, yoga, whatever you want to do to really get over this. And, really, I think we've got to police our thoughts. We've got to police ourselves. If you're feeling depressed, it's probably not you. It's probably the collective energy, and you just think it's you, remove it, and I think we've got to really show up at this time, because it's pretty extreme. I think the planet's pretty dark right now, but it's going to get lighter. There's light. It's darkest before the dawn, as they say.
Yeah. So do you need to run?
Sorry?
Do you need to run? Are you,
I do actually, Josh. I've got some guests I've got to say goodbye to.
Yeah, I was looking at the time, and I don't want to keep you too long, and we're almost to the 3-hour mark. Of course, part of it, I was late getting here to the studio, folks, and sorry about that to Christopher. I would like to record with you, though, if we could at some point, because I would like to get you on the podcast, because we have the same people that watch this. They listen to the podcast, but not vice versa. Not all the pod people, as I call them. They don't all come watch YouTube, and then they'll be like, "You didn't drop a show," and I'm like, "I did 4 of them. You just didn't tune in."
Yeah, we got to record, because I got some questions locked and loaded that we didn't have time to get to.
We didn't get
tonight.
to.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
So,
I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure. Let me
Oh,
know when, and we'll set something up. You have my email, you have my address, and we can exchange information.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
any closing statement you want to make, or
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on. I love the guests. Brilliant questions, and I've really enjoyed being on here. Hope you've enjoyed it too. And bless your heart.
yeah. So Christopher
is
Macklin,
awesome.
I'm so glad that your publicist got in touch with me,
Yeah.
and we're honored that they wanted you to come on the show. I'm going to start paying more attention to people's publicists. I'm going to be honest, people bombard us with stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know this. But maybe I need to go back and take a look because when I
Thank the
just saw
guys.
your
Bless them.
yeah. So some people had told me, they were like, Christopher Macklin, yeah, he's a thumbs up. So I was like, okay, let's get him on. But definitely, dude, yeah. And Fridays, unfortunately for us, Fridays are kind of slow. So we hit like I think 4:30 something, whatever. But people watch it on the replay because Sunday is where we get massive, we get like double that, but Fridays, for some reason, no matter what the subject is, no matter who we have, no matter what we do,
Yeah.
people just don't like Friday. They want to, I guess they just want to unwind.
It's
or
the end of
whatever.
their work week, I guess.
Yeah.
They're just kind
so
of
maybe
like,
that's what it is.
yeah.
But Friday's just kind of a chill day for me. But when you came on and I saw what we were talking about, I was like, oh, I have a lot of stuff to talk about with this. So me and you could go on for hours with
Yeah.
this stuff. I think we need to record so we can get
let's do it.
because you'll get double the
I'd love to,
audience.
Josh.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you, Christopher.
Well, I love you all.
To where we can see him.
Yes,
I'm going to probably
so
see you tomorrow.
Yeah, so the link to Christopher Macklin's website, if you haven't seen it, it's pinned at the top of the live chat. You just click there, globalenlightenmentproject.com, I believe it is.
Yep.
Well, Tony, thanks for being there as well, bless your heart.
Yeah. So that's Anthony. Tony is
Anthony,
it's
sorry.
funny because Tony's name is not Anthony. It's just Tony because his mother's Vietnamese.
Apologies.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
so the
it's all good, it's all
Vietnamese,
good.
they love that name Tony. There's like a million Tonys.
Yeah.
Like one of Tony's friends was Vietnamese. He was named Tony. And they went to temple together, and I dropped him off. And his friend, that's my friend Tony. And my other friend Tony, I'm like, how many Tonys are there? He's like, Tony's a very popular name with Vietnamese.
Yeah.
I learned that when he was a kid, and I dropped him off at the Buddhist school or whatever. But all right, so we'll see you, Christopher.
God bless. Thank you for having me.
God bless.
God bless.
All right, bye. So Christopher Macklin, great guest, and I knew it was going to be good because I did a little bit of research over the last couple of days, folks. I've been so busy, so slammed with everything, with work, with the ranch, and with everything's going on, raising these pups. I act like I'm doing it. My wife is really doing it. It's like the music. I'm like, yeah, it's our new song. It's not. It's hers. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, the only thing I had anything to do with at all was the idea for it was the Bear King and then the Mummy, and then that was just like kind of telling her, hey, this is what I would kind of like, and she did. It's her work, her baby, and so the overwhelming positive response for the Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing response to that. So Christopher Macklin, great guest. We had a lot to discuss, and sorry for showing up a little bit late, but I just had a lot to do today, man. And I almost was going to cancel, but then I had Macklin coming on. I said, I can't cancel. I got a guest.
Yeah.
But if it was just me blabbing, I'd probably say, yeah. Some people don't like me talking and asking questions, but I have to say what I got to say. I'm sorry if you don't like that. Then there's other channels that you can, you can go and gripe and complain to them. I guess they're okay with it, with you doing that. I'm not, because I know what I need to say, what needs to be said. Because if you are a veteran and you're a paratrooper, a real paratrooper, then you've come all this way learning all of this stuff. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you something. You're probably going to think I'm trying to get you to go give me views or likes or what are the other ones people do?
Shares,
subs, shares.
Yeah.
Does share is important? I don't know, but it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. However it works, I'm not real big on like how, what I don't look at algorithms. I don't really know. Don't really care. But I want you to learn. So if you do, go back to the live streams and pay attention and pick up what you haven't learned, because we talk so much on the podcast and the live streams, and enjoy the encounters and the stories. That's great. Thank you to Shadows for that donation. You want to do that. That's great. But, like I said before, you got to have that mind, body, spirit connection. I know people who, this person that I used to be really close with, she was one of my really good friends, and her, we didn't date or anything. She was just a friend, but her mother, when I met her mother, she was just like, yeah, and she was so spiritual. It was unreal, but she wasn't even grounded in this reality. She was meditating all the time. And I tell you right now, this is a freaky thing. And I didn't even remember this until the other day when me and Nellie were talking, and I started talking about an encounter I had at the, you know where the DPS office is? Or if you're going down Koenig, right across the street there's a bunch of buildings. They're like a bunch of different buildings.
Yeah.
And then in front of that same shopping center is the Half Price Books and the KFC. Because when you want to look at Half Price Books,
there's a Whataburger right there.
You got to go eat greasy chicken first before you go and start handling all the books. So
well, that's why they're half price.
Yeah, it's half price because of the greasy chicken.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. But anyway, so I used to work for a security company. It was a very large company. It was the third largest in the city at that time, and I think it was like fifth largest in the state. It was a very big company, and I was a lieutenant there. And I think we had something like 130 something patrol accounts. It was unbelievable. And so we had a lot of accounts, and so I was one of the officers or whatever. And so my job at times, which sucked, I could be on a standing post nearby, or I could be on a patrol truck, whatever. And I was only working 3 days a week at that time, but dude, they would pile like 20 accounts on you on each guard. It was hard, dude. Okay. Imagine that. We do like half that now, just on per route, We only have one guard that does that many. And so I saw something there, but it brought up memories, of some other things. And I remember this, I had totally didn't even think about this until I started going over that particular encounter with Nellie. It was just a shadow looking thing, but this female friend of mine, and her mother's still alive, and I don't want her to feel like I'm calling her out because a lot of people know who she is. But her mother astral projected. Like, we were all in the living room, and her mother came walking out of her room, and it was weird because she moved like real fast, and and there were three of us that saw it. Okay. And we all saw her, and then I got up to go to the restroom, and I looked into her bedroom, and her mother was laying there on the bed. And I had totally like blocked that out, not blocked it, but kind of, it's just like so many memories. You have so many memories that some of them you don't really, because I have to memorize so much.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. That it wasn't like sticking in my
You just
mind.
file it kind of towards the back.
Yeah, it was just like one of those weird things. And so when I told, I'm not gonna say her name, when I told her, hey, I just saw your mom laying there. We just saw your mom going to the kitchen. She's like, yeah, she does that all the time. So then later on, was the next day, we were over there because she lived way out in the hill country, and so we had like a cookout, and a bunch of us slept. I slept outside on the deck because it was so nice. That place is really cool, man. She had a really, really cool pad, and it was made of cedar wood. And so her mother says, "Oh, I apologize about that. Sometimes I'll leave my body and I'll go to the kitchen and not realize that I'm not even in my body." And I just remember her saying, she told me and Dee that, my brother.
It's kind of dangerous at that point.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. Like,
involuntary.
she's so far into the spirit that she's not even on this planet anymore.
She could wander too far off and get that silver cord. if
And
it's
she was
cut.
telling us, yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I told her. I said, and back then I was not a person to be telling you about it, because I was living on the bad side. I thought I was a good guy, but I really wasn't. And I told her, I said, look, I'm not an expert, but I don't think that's very smart. And she's like, well, you need to get more spiritual. I said, maybe you need to get more physical. And she goes, oh, no, physical is just yuck. I said, yeah, but you have to have a connection.
Yeah.
There has to be a grounding to a degree.
It's got to be like a synthesis between mind, body, and spirit. Like you take like whenever people believe like the material world or the flesh is like meaningless, I kind of like I can't commit to that belief, because
You wouldn't be here. If
there's
that
a
was
there's a
the case.
reason for all of
Yeah.
this, that like
Mhm.
you know, this is not all there is, but this is not meaningless. This is part of reality.
Yeah.
You know,
A reality.
yeah. I mean, like even if it's just a perception of reality, it is still something. It is here. It's not meaningless, and there has to be like the spirit and the body. There has to be a synthesis, you know, between mind, body, and spirit. It's like a trinity there too. You know.
Yeah, and one of the things too, like, you know, if you're one of those people who's not like in tune with all three, you will have all sorts of problems. Now you can get problems thrust upon you because somebody can curse you or do other things, and you just have to fight it. But I mean, there are people like, you know, this reality. Okay, what he said about the Akashic records, very important, because people will go out of this reality and they'll think that they're somewhere in the past or the future. They're looking at it, and what they're not really there. They think that they're in an alternate reality. Yes, that does happen. Yes, that does happen. But they'll think that they're in an alternate reality, but what they're really doing is observing the Akashic records, and then they'll be like, "I saw this and I saw that," and you're like, "Yeah, it was your past,
Mhm.
but it might have been a past from a different timeline." That's the thing, you know. So it is a very interesting thing. And then you'll see these, like what he's talking about, these fractal beings, like they're just like hanging around all over the place. What to me they are, and I should have asked Christopher what he thought they were, but what I think they are, those fractal beings are like little pieces of a soul matrix. They break off and they're their own entity.
Mhm.
But in reality, they're like all like if you were to take like an entity that's like, let's just like here, like Scarewolf here. You know, you got this guy. Unfortunately, the tariffs are not going to allow us to be mass producing these guys right now. But it's something that probably needs to
Here,
happen.
use this one, because that guy's gonna make
Rattle
noise.
so much. There you go. So you got Scarewolf here, right? And you were to take and break pieces of him off. You have these little fractal beings, but they are their own entity.
Mhm.
And when they clump together, they make something. You were talking about a guy from South Africa. You sent me a video to watch, and I haven't gotten through it.
Mhm.
But the guy's talking about trying to do a ceremony,
Mhm.
right? And what he was trying to do was bring these demonic entities onto him because they hang out in clusters,
Mhm.
which is something I've said. They hang out in little gangs and little groups. And then you're not just getting possessed by one, you're getting possessed by a gang of these things. See, and they're not even complete beings or specimens a lot of times. Yes, Amy Krill, Portuguese man of war. Yes, smart audience. And so you have, you know, little pieces of Scarewolf that go and become their own little thing. Now, what does this say in the Kabbalah, the book of Jewish esotericism, mysticism, whatever? Like I said, I don't practice it, and I think it's something you should stay away from unless you just want to know what it says. But it does say some things, like it says that that demons are basically like they are fractaled. You know what I mean? That's what they are. They're compressed beings from an alternate universe that was destroyed, and they were thrown into our universe. That's the theory, though, that because what it says doesn't necessarily translate to that. But that's what people think that's, you know, and the compression could be anything. It could have been the Denisovians, why we only find them under the water, their bones, and they're all compressed and broken down, because now that they would be the Nephilim and evil spirits for all time, right?
Mhm.
But they would be from a different world, a different time, the antediluvian world, you know, antediluvian being before the flood. So we don't know. There's different theories, but there could be also multiple things happening where there's like a bunch of different correct answers. I had a professor once. I couldn't stand her. She was a stupid person, but I shouldn't have said that. But she did say a few things that I agreed with, and one of which was like she said there are often many correct answers. Unfortunately, she was talking about something very stupid, and I was like, that's not true.
Yeah.
She's like, yes, there is. You know, like this. Oh God, like blowing a you know, trombone. And I was like, okay, trombone noise making lady. I said, look, I don't agree with you. I agree, though. What you said made me think that there are in many cases. But in that particular case, I'm not going to say what it was. I was like, no, it's not. Because I would start a whole huge political debate about life and things like that. And I said, no, there's not. She said, no, there's many different. No, there's not. Not in that. To me. Because it's a moral conundrum to them. To me, it's just morality, period. How is it a conundrum, life or death?
Yeah.
You know, you're killing something. And so she was a stupid hoe. But anyway, yeah, I need to quit talking like that, even though she was a stupid hoe. It just is annoying when you deal with people like that. But she is correct. Broken clocks and all that, and them being right. There are people that I can't stand, but every now and then they'll say something that's absolutely correct. There's one guy that persecutes me relentlessly. He hates my guts, and his every waking moment of his life, which is sad, is ate up with thoughts of how to do me in. But he said something one day, and I saw the post, and it was like talking about destroying parasites. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with a lot of things that people say that I don't like. The people are my enemies or I don't like them. Doesn't mean that they're my friend. I've said, hey, you know what? I like that part. I agree with you. Doesn't mean we're friends, right? There are things about Sharia law that are acceptable. Certain things. Do I agree with it? No. I agree with about 20% of it. That doesn't make me pro Sharia law. First and foremost is their mistreatment of women. It's just like woman is okay, women make mistakes or whatever, but they're not dogs.
Yeah.
You know, and then the one saying that, you know, a woman's shame is from the bottom of their feet to the top of their head. I'm like, come on, dude, really? That's a man too, you know? So there is this sort of, you know, but there are some things that I agree with, you know? You shouldn't be outside after certain times at night because of what's out there. Mm-hmm. Now they understand too, though, that they have people that walk around and police things, right? So I agree with that because you have to have somebody that's spiritually strong to go and brave the dark. That's our job. We go out at night and we see some weird stuff, and we deal with some weird ass mean people. We risk our lives at least 3 or 4 times a week. I'm not even joking, folks. Don't ever be surprised if one day they say Wolf got hurt and that's it. I mean, because we're dealing with these maniacal NPC zombies that all it takes is them to just do this. That's it. You approach the wrong person who's tweaking or something, and they got their little pow pow, pew pew, whatever, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So we are threatened quite a bit. You know, you get these crazy people. But you know, like I said, there is wrong and right. There's always wrong and right. But sometimes people try to take it and make it, they twist it into me, you know, oh, this is a debatable issue. No, it's not. It's just, you know, I'm not trying to be right. I'm just saying that there's morality. So people take moral issues and they turn them into these moral conundrums. This isn't a moral conundrum. You've made that.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, it's not up for debate. All right. Like there's no 2 ways about it. There's just correct and incorrect, right and wrong.
Yeah.
Like what is there to debate here? It's not up for discussion.
This is funny, Anthony. You probably like this. The other day I was arguing with some fool on Facebook. The other day it was today's Friday. Mm-hmm. So it was yesterday. Okay. So yesterday there's this one site where we go and you get a little bit of downtime, whatever. But I was on there and I was like messing around on Facebook late at night, you know. And that's where the real smart people are, you know, just
of course,
insomniac, full of coffee, whatever, angry, agitated.
The only smarter people you can find are on Reddit.
So this guy gets on there and he's talking and he's saying like this ridiculous crap, you know, and he goes, well, in this perfect utopian world, he was talking to another guy who's a listener at PRT. And he's like, in this perfect utopian world that you guys are speaking of, he goes, who would be in charge? Who would make this perfect world right? And I was like, me. Yeah. Because exactly,
just come out and say it.
Exactly, you want to be the totalitarian dictator and I was like, why not? I'm Caesar. I could be the totalitarian dictator that you've always dreamed of.
The fact is, like, so do you. It's just that you don't have the balls to
Just
say
come out
it.
and say it. Yeah. You're trying to say that you're okay with all these other people being in charge of your life. You really aren't. Or you're just that stupid.
Mhm.
You're just that big of a sheeple that you're okay with that. Man does not need to be in charge of shit, dude, to tell you the truth. But here's the thing. He says, why are you qualified, whatever? I said, let me tell you something. If I was, the people would love me, the bulk of them. Because if you learn anything from Caesar, other than him believing that the Senate wouldn't stab him to death, we learned from them, from that act, never to trust them. They're not your friends. And if you are a true leader, you got to really be anti-Senate. Okay, sorry. But I told him, I said, the people cared more about the gifts of this benign dictator than the empty promises of a Senate. So I said, think about that. And I said, so all you got to do is give them what they actually need. Give them what they want to a degree. But as long as you can provide everything that they need through their own merits, I'm not talking about communism, right? Everybody produces according to, and they get according to their merits. So they see that when they work, they get, their life is improved. So they're part of that cooperative. And everybody gets what they need, but most of what they want, because everybody has to sacrifice some, right? But as long as you get the bulk of what you want, because if everybody's getting everything they want, that doesn't work. That is impossible. That's absolutely impossible. And if you're into communism, then nobody gets what they want. Everybody's equally poor, destitute, and messed up. So that's the case there. And let's see what Thorwolf says. He says best government is a strong sovereign and an armed population. Exactly. I agree. And now if you leave the population armed, right, that ensures that you can't be an evil
tyrant.
A tyrant. Yes. Now, if you go and you disarm everybody, that's a problem. And I'm going to say something, and this is something that I've argued with people before. They're like, well, Hitler, Mussolini, and all these other dictators, they disarmed their population. Actually, they didn't.
Treaty of Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles disarmed their people. And in fact, the fascists did not disarm their people. The communists did. And don't get it twisted and think that I'm a fascista and that I want to become that or whatever. And I'm not a communista either. Need that. If you could plug it. Yep. But that's the thing. Yeah, and you're right, Thorwolf. Hitler didn't disarm his population. In fact, he armed everyone in preparation for what he believed would be a Western or Soviet or joint invasion of his country. So he felt like, at least according to what he was saying, that the war had to come and he had to be preempted, because he really did believe by rearming Germany, he was doing the right thing, but they were going to be attacked. So, yeah, they feared the Germans arming themselves. They did, with good reason, though. And if they would have listened to Mussolini's warnings, none of it would have happened at all. But he's another one. Everybody's like, oh, the Allies wanted it. They did. And Churchill was instrumental in that. But I tell people, like, read your history, really learn history, and stop letting these dickheads teach you history, because they don't know what they're talking about. So that's it. That's all I had to say for tonight. I enjoyed the guest. He was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was awesome. It was incredible. So go check it out if you want to go check out what he's doing. If it's not for you, it's not your cup of tea. It's not your cup of tea, man. I mean,
he reminded me of you, because, like, with his ability to get into that deep knowledge, like, you're the only other person who I've seen who was able to articulate those kind of things, like
those points
to that degree. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that can do it. I'm nobody special, but anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, Sunday night, the San Antonio Werewolf. We have a couple stories on board. We'll see what happens. And thank you for listening. I got to run, folks. I really have to get going tonight. Good night.